All right, everyone, welcome for another episode of the Group Up Podcast. We're here for the Great March debate. I know the month has just started, but the naming conventions imply that I must, when the Avengers assemble, name it after the month that we're doing our call. 1st of March, we're back, and the GOATed or OG squad has returned. So let me introduce my homies that need no introduction. In the bottom right, munching on his pistachios, is my man Samito. Samito, what's up?
You know it's gonna be a good one when I come locked and loaded. I'm telling you guys, if you have not had pistachios, like a bag of them, and eaten the whole bag, you're missing out. Okay, I'm telling you, it's pistachio day. It's pistachio day. So I'm doing well, SVB. Thanks for having me.
You haven't lived life. You haven't been binging on the pistachios. Yeah, it's like Sam always comes with like the snack will decide the flavor of Samito. Sometimes he's got the bourbon like ready, and he's just like then he's maybe
Yeah,
spicier, but the
yeah, redder in the face.
redder in the face. The pistachios maybe will be mellow. We'll see how it goes. In the bottom left is my man Flats. Flats, what's up?
Hello, I am here.
You're
Awake.
here.
Yep.
I like the new apartment setup has the more streamery setup. Like you have all the cute things in your background. I like that.
No, thank you. Yeah, I have a. This is a 2 bedroom, so now I have a little stream room. It's nice.
That's sweet. That's awesome. And with his posters in the back, always reminding me of games that I nostalgize over earlier. We're watching StarCraft. It's my man Freedo. Freedo, what's up?
StarCraft also added a top rank above all the other ranks in order to inject some life into their rank system. Only Pepperidge Farm remembers. But I'll be bringing the optimism, I think, of the call. I have fallen in love with the game again with this new patch, partially because tank is about defending your team again. So I think I can be somewhat good at that because I can't aim. And so much so that I started streaming this week every single day, and ups and downs, a lot of trials and tribulations. Some of them were playing with SVB, of course, but I'm excited to learn the game and get better at it because I like this version of the game with a few outliers that I think are absolutely insane that need to be balanced immediately, and I'll be a much happier man. But excited to grind the game, man. I think it's on the right trajectory, but they need to pick up the pace.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Frito and I have been doing a lot, sometimes trioing with Nate's son, and it's been a lot of fun generally stacking, and we'll get into talking about like how that has been as an experience for you guys. I think you guys have been stacking a little bit too. Sam actually joined us for a game, and that was fun. But of course, it comes with its challenges, and the season has come with its challenges. So let's discuss it then. Let's discuss your raw thoughts because I haven't spoken to you guys since season 9 launched. I was there in Irvine with talking to the guys. We're having the live podcast for how we felt, and everyone was generally very happy and optimistic. Is that still the sentiment? Are we still happy? Are we still enjoying this kind of new big reshake up Overwatch with the bigger health pools, the bigger hitboxes? I'll take it to Flats first. Flats, how you finding season 9, my friend?
I think as long as you're not a tank player, you're having a great time. If you're a tank player, you're probably suffering quite a bit. That doesn't mean it's not fun though, because there's new stuff to play for, which is great. That being said, though, we're still in the honeymoon phase. I think before even the patch came out, we were on here. I was like, it's gonna be about like 3 months before anyone starts really seeing problems. Because like it's gonna be the same thing at the start of Overwatch 2, right? At the start of Overwatch 2, everyone's like, oh my god, this is awesome for like 3 months, and then it was like you start to see the flaws, right? So it's still a little bit early for that. But other than that, though, it's been nice to have something to play for again. I've been playing a ton, but yeah, tank definitely does not feel like very impactful anymore. I would argue it depends. Like, okay, obviously there's like a little flow chart that has to be made. Like, is there if your tank is significantly better than their tank, you're probably like, you know, there's going to be some impact. But if like you're anywhere near the same skill level, it's like DPS patch all the way.
DPS patch. He's dubbed it the DPS patch. Samito, do you agree? Is it the DPS patch?
Oh yeah, definitely. So let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the DPS passive, which has just been the real shake up here. I would say the projectile sizes, those got tuned down pretty quick, and they're going to continue to get tuned down. I think the bigger change was that DPS passive. Yeah, it's a DPS patch. It's the first time DPS has been, for most of the time, the most impactful role in the game overall in a really long time since Overwatch 2 beta. Probably, and then before that, I would say maybe like October 2020 or or Echo. There were a couple DPS heroes that were good, but like I would say as a collective, the role in general is incredibly powerful right now. Unfortunately, there's definitely a lot of big losers in terms of the balance patch. Reinhardt being one of them. A couple other supports. My girl Ana is actually. Don't pick Ana. She's literally unplayable. She's like you could play perfectly on Ana. Like I played a game and stacked with like a couple of my IRL buddies who came back to try out the patch, and I played Ana on offense. 0 deaths, was up the whole time. Right. Could not win because like you just literally can't do enough. She has the same problem right now that Lifeweaver had when he came out, and that like her stats don't justify the pick. Like you can't do anything, which is why SBB, that Moira game we had where you put up like LeBron stats on Moira, she's actually we're at a state of the game where Moira is better than Ana, which is really funny. But I'll say this: the art of this patch is good. I always talk about the science on here, SVB. I feel like that's where I can contribute is the science of the game. But this is definitely more of an art where it's like, hey, let's get crazy, let's get wacky, and that might be Overwatch's niche, right? Where it's like, hey, let's get wacky, let's do cool stuff, let's do. Okay, is that Cowboy Bebop thing coming? Is that what was teased? Like, I don't even like where. Come on, like I want the next. Listen, if they go from One Punch Man to Cowboy Bebop, that's a bop right there. That's a bop. I'm about it. Pun intended. Oh my goodness, I'm on a roll.
The pistachios got you off the sauce, dude.
I know, dude. I know. But no, I've enjoyed it. It's nice. There's one big takeaway that we can all take away from this. The game is miserable when supports can outdo and outheal everything. This patch has brought back like the ability to secure kills, and that just really highlights what makes Overwatch a fun game. So don't overtune the supports. If supports are the best role in the game almost always will be miserable, and the worst metas in the game are always caused from supports being overtuned. So even if they have to make DPS way better in a game that's not remotely balanced right now, which is the ideal situation, it's kind of PEMDAS, right? Have the core flow of the game be fun, and then balance the game on top of that, right? The balance is the icing on the cake, but the core game right now in terms of how it flows and when you go look for kills and how things can die, way more fun. Stacking, also great. There was one day where I played the same stack 8 games in a row and lost all 8, expected to lose, and I lost my mind. And I'm okay with that. I'll take that any day of the week over not being able to stack at all. I just shouldn't play that stack 8 games in a row and be expected to lose all 8 games. In the final game, I finally got 3 Overwatch League players on my team against that stack, and we still lost the game. So I think the system definitely needs some tweaks. I might have hit champ too, by the way.
So much.
That was frustrating.
So
But that's spirit though. That's what it's about. Like I'd rather have people be invested in what they're doing and put heart and soul, whether it be positive or negative emotion, because that means people care. And I think Flat said that in a couple of the previous shows. So I think overall this was definitely a better patch than what had been out there previously, because the sustain was just from season 6 on was just miserable.
I mean, a lot of great points made by Sam there, and a lot to touch on. I'm just gonna flag them up for my own mental note as well, and things to touch on later, like the Ana point I want to bring up at some point, like Ana's state, because she is by statistics the most popular singular hero in Overwatch, so that's something to flag up. The general idea of supports, and what Sam feels is like they should never be that strong, they should never be dominating the game, overwhelming the game. Tank state, DPS patch, the stacking. So, and the passion which we can always come to. Freedo, what are your overall impressions? Lots of points to riff off there, but overall impressions. How are you enjoying season 9?
Muted.
Yeah, just learning streaming. I stopped to cough earlier. I'm glad you're taking mental notes, because I have learned on this show that I need to take actual notes. So I have notes on these as well. So I'll try to I have things on everything you just said. I'll table those things that you're noting as well. And I think I'll make a key takeaway here, okay? Because Flats made a horribly incorrect prediction on this show, and I want to call him out for how wrong he was about this. He said that it would take 2 months for us to figure out what's broken. I think it took 2 days, where there's just some heroes that are obnoxiously overpowered. We should have known that if there is easy bullshit that you can get away in this game, people will only play that, and you'll just corny cheese it out. I've got a few that I think overly stand out as being obnoxious. Moira is going to be the top one. I think we can't even think. This is what I want. Okay, let's take a step back, balance-wise. Do not mass balance the game. Don't do 100 changes. Because I want them to do is look at the heroes that are obnoxious and bad for gameplay, tune them back, then see what happens. I don't want Horse to get buffed and this to get buffed and then Moira gets buffed and then the whole meta changes again and we're chasing our tail for the next 6 months. Don't do that. So I actually prefer them to be a bit more surgical with this, but Moira is outrageous. And I tried to say this in my tier list video when I made it. A lot of players at that time, it seemed, were like thinking I was ridiculous. Like, Freedo put Moira in D tier? What a moron. What does he know? I mean, he's not top 1. I mean, he doesn't know anything. But clearly, over time, and now Sam's even saying it as well, and I don't know if you felt that at the time immediately, but I immediately was like, wow, even if Ana lands her abilities, she always gets traded out. And this is a team shoot meta. You need to be able to escape, swarm, come in, come out, defend. The DPS passive is ruling everything. That, oddly enough, makes me like tank because I feel we finally have a tank experience on the right trajectory from how I would like to play it anyway, which is closer to Overwatch 1 tanking, which is more about making space, holding positions, and helping your team. The balance isn't quite there, but like I mean, when could we have said that Diva was a top tier tank in Overwatch 2? She was always like an also Rand tank because prior to this point, you wanted a big DPS or a big durable wall. That's it. Those are the 2 options essentially most of the time, at least in ranked. Obviously, like pro play, Winston, different, but in general, that was like the easy mode meta that everyone's learned is Overwatch 2 tanking. Now we have the top tanks that interact with the DPS passive better, and that at least makes the game about space and team fighting, which is a game I want to be playing, at least personally. So I'm happy about that. I just think like what I want to warn everyone is that when we start complaining about heroes like Ana or Kiri, there is always worse things around the corner, and we found it. It's Moira. Moira is lurking in this room right now. I think if I am not checking the cooldowns appropriately, she might throw a damage orb and kill me on this podcast right now. She is way too easy for everything she does and drives me insane, and that needs to change as soon as possible as far as I'm concerned. Sam's got his finger up. What do you got?
But Freedo, Moira doesn't have any utility. I saw that on TikTok. She's wrong. Go ahead. Sorry, I just had to do that.
Yeah, as it turns out, like the best mobility escape is pretty darn good. Like being able to go in and out. The thing I hate the most about it is what I think should be fundamental Moira gameplay is that if you fade in, you should die. You should not be able to fade into the enemy team and have it back in time to get out. And the reason why I hate it so much is that a lot of players don't know what to do against it, and it's just a mechanics check often to stop that. And then even if you play it with the team, it's also still boring. So either way, it's boring and corny on the DPS Moira playstyle or in the teamwork playstyle. It's not good. She needs a rework, or if they're not going to rework her in time, just nerf her so I can play against interesting characters like Ana again, because I'd rather get anti-nated than have to chase a Moira around the map as she flanks my DPS, who are now the carries, and if they struggle to hit her, we just lose. Like I can't stand playing against Moira. So that's my intro. I have comments on all the other things we mentioned as well, but we'll hold that for now.
We'll get into it. Yeah, I'm actually surprised you went for the throw on Moira, because when you were like, there's some outliers I wanna go at, I thought we were gonna have this Torb rant again that we had before the call started, where Freedo's another little pin to put in is Freedo's deep hatred for Torbjorn now. But let's go on the Moira now that we're here, and just the general support idea. I'm taking it to Flats first. Flats, do you share the Moira hate and the loathing and the fear that the damage orb may come for your neck at any moment, or what is your general take on how supports are playing out this season?
Well, I was going to answer no, and then you said the damage orb thing, and I'm pretty sure I have a little beeper on the top of my head that attracts it. I died more times of watching it like bounce across the map. I'm like, oh, I'm fine, and it just comes straight for me, and I'm dead. But I mean, I kind of disagree. I mean, don't get me wrong, Moira's really good. I'm not disagreeing on that. I'm saying that the whole reason Moira is so good is because this meta is so fast. Like, everything dies so fast that you have that one bailout ability, and that's it. Like, you need to survive. And yeah, like in ranked play, like people are fucking on whatever targets half the time. They're running around the map, fucking chickens with their heads cut off. So Moiras will get that second fade off a lot of times, and that's really good for them because they can survive. Meanwhile, your Anas can't do that. Even BAP is like much more killable right now than he used to be. Once that lamp's out, like that old burst with the DPS passive don't really mean a whole lot right now. So it's much more about like positioning and where you're sitting in at, because if you make the enemy team burn cooldowns to get to you, you have a decent chance. But you don't have to think about that one where you just walk in with your team, and if they go at you, just whoop, then you fade away and you're gone. And it's like there's also a good chance because there's so much shit happening. Because it's and you know that's why I think that maybe this patch actually might be good as long as you're not a tank. Like tank sucks, but everything else, like it's kind of what they wanted, right? Like it's very brawly in a lot of ways. Like whether you're playing actual dive heroes or not, you play super fast like together. And you can actually get lost a little, you know, like if it's a good Moira and you see like she like goes to the fade to the left and you see the shadow and it's like, oh, she went left, but she actually turned back and went the other way. Like you lose her for a second or two. That's an extra 2 seconds back on her cooldown. And then it's like, oh shit, where'd she go? And then she throws heal orb. You gotta try to cut through the heal orb. But I mean, the whole point of that is just because of how fast the game is. Like if healing meant more, like there's no point in really like healing your tank half the time right now because they're gonna die. So you get like the AoE heals like everybody a little bit, as well as the AoE damage and the good survivability. You just brawl and death ball together. Yeah, you keep putting out healing, keep putting out damage, keep putting out healing, keep putting out damage, but it's like more of the survivability, and like the idea of keeping your tank alive is just like not it. So it's like more about self survivability and trying to either like play with your DPS and follow up on like what they're on, or just like play for your fucking life. And I know that might sound crazy, but at least to my perspective, that's what it seems to be. And if it wasn't as much killing power, or if tank was a little bit tankier, and there was actually like a reason to invest more of those healing resources, and be more a little more sustained, as opposed to like, okay, there's no point in sitting on this corner and poking at all, because once you take a little bit of damage on tank, you're not getting that health back. So you just walk up and go. Right, and that's where Moira is really, really good. I don't know if that's like a Moira issue, though. I don't know if she needs a rework. I'm fine with having heroes that are a little bit more simple to play. It's not like they're good all the time, you know?
Yeah, I'm kind of not sure where I land personally. Like, I was not a Moira believer until Samito was like, "SEB, lock the Moira right now, my guy." We were in a game, and I've never been someone who like believes in the Moira. I always had this like old school rigid mentality of like, whatever you do on Moira, I could probably just do better on BAP. But as Flat said, BAP is not all that hot. I mean, he's still good. I still would pick BAP in this season, but like this is one of those like you don't realize the power creep, or the reverse, the nerf creep that comes in, where it's like they reduced his shift, so his like healing to himself from the shift got lower. Not recently, but it was a little bit ago. On top of that, the healing or the DPS passive means he's doing less healing. And then, as Flat said, then the rest of the flowchart follows pretty easily, where it's like the game is faster, health pools are bigger, so the burst of like a Hanzo is not as strong anymore, but healing is lower, so the sustained burst, if we can call it that, of a dive is stronger. Therefore, you want that like zerging all in. Therefore, survivable supports are better. Ana suffers. Moira's fade is great, and also Moira's healing is great because it's like a sustained AoE burst, if we can call it that, right? Like with BAP, you could right click and shift, but that's like a one-time thing. With Moira, you're like spraying everyone, because if everyone's all inning in a dive, you're spraying everyone. You throw the heal orb, and like when we were playing a game of, was it Suravasa? It was Suravasa, right? And it'd be like, I get cold, we in, we kill stuff. Next fight, I drop like one healing orb and spray, and I was like 40-50% ult charge because we were just stacking so hard. And so like every second fight, I had coalescence, and it was nuts. And it was like, I was just like, wow, this is crazy, because this is supposed to be the patch where healing doesn't matter so much. But Moira can provide that and be sustainable, and the Cole is like a team fight winning ult. So she's very, very strong. I'm not sure how I feel about her being very strong. I don't mind so much because to me, it doesn't feel oppressively strong. Like, I don't feel like I have to pick Moira or that she dominates the game. It feels more like a consequence of what else has happened around her. I do lament a little bit the loss of Ana, though, but I also recognize that there's going to be a lot of people who are very happy to see her basically in the dumpster pick, and to see Samito refer to her as like a never pick hero. Unpickable. Because she has had a lot of time in the sun, and I can understand people being like, that's enough, I don't care anymore, just take her out for a while. But I also do lament the loss of a skillful hero, and I think what most people agree is one of the most fair interactions in the game. Sam, I'm curious how you feel about all of that.
Gentlemen. You know, I started the war against Moira in 2019, 2020. Everybody called me crazy. how could you say this, Samito? Moira has no utility. You don't know what you're talking about. Blah blah blah. Ironically, this is like right after my contender season where I had just had to learn Brig and support, and I was being told by the mass Moira army, who all are K-pop fans too. I've started to put two and two together. I picked up on it, guys. I understand the K-pop. I get where y'all are coming from. But they are, dude. Do you know how many K-pop band camps I got hit with in my replies when I was talking about Damage Orb? Like half of them. It was crazy, right? I'm not even kidding.
We'll be stuck on this for an hour, Sam. Come on.
Yeah, we're moving on. It's just so funny because I always try to say, I was like, hey, look, like Moira, like she has utility. She is good. And SVB, that's kind of what you realize. So let's break down why Moira is good briefly, right? Look at what happened to the support role, right? Ult charge increased globally by 10% for everybody to start. So ults are harder to build in general, okay? DPS passive, also 20% less healing on any target, right? So a single target like power healer like Ana, whose biggest win condition is her nano, isn't just nerfed by 10%. It's nerfed by about 30, because most of the time, now you're going to have to nade your team instead of using it aggressively. So you lose your option to use it aggressively or your team's just going to die, right? You're super vulnerable, and now your win con is miles away compared to where it was before. But what did I always tell you guys Moira's best win condition was? She builds her ult faster than any other support in the game, and she's the easiest to heal with, and she has the survivability. What makes her so good isn't really just her sustain, it's the fact that she's gonna get Cole, because that 10% nerf reduction doesn't affect her very much, and the 20% also doesn't really hurt her build rate that much, because the heal orb is going to get everybody, right? Ana and these other healers, even BAP, like they're going to struggle to get all these targets, but Moira also, if you tag somebody with your main heal, they heal over time, right? So you have tons of ways to build that Cole quickly, and it's just now by far, even more so than previously because of the global ult charge nerfs, the fastest building support all SUV. And that's why in that game, I had 6k healing on Lucio, and you had 17k on Moira, right? Because you could just crank it out with the heal orb. So it's just rinse, repeat, build that Cole, go in aggressively. And she's always been very good in these brawly comps. She's been one of the best picks in the game, right? Now, it's definitely not balanced, and you don't want to see that for the skill to reward. Like I wouldn't even say Ana necessarily had her time in the sun. She just stuck out like a sore thumb because her impact was so immediate, right? It was so obvious to see when that Ana was hitting a nade or hitting a sleep dart, something like that. And Moira, it definitely probably feels a little bit better for the tank player, aside from actually getting the kills, because you're just not getting constantly drilled with that CC. Now, playing tank is not fun for me personally. Like, it is infuriating because there are some times where it's just out of your control, and the thing is, like, while it is more about spacing, like what Freedo said, you just have to counter swap. It is the most efficient way to play tank. You constantly counter swap. Even if you have your ult, just switch. Don't bother. You want to know why it's not worth it? Because they're just going to go MO heroes, and your ult's going to be worthless anyway. So you're better off just playing for the neutral every fight. That being said, you know, I think Moira probably should get tuned down. Like, she got a ton of buffs to fade on top of like it getting jump and staying a 6-second cooldown. I always thought that was insane. 6 seconds. 6 seconds on a cooldown is absurd, especially when there's no mechanical requirement for it, and they've added a ton of other buffs to it over time. I think an easy thing would be to increase that cooldown. I don't think Moira necessarily needs a rework. I think it says more about the state of the game around her that she's the best support pick in rank. Like, she's easily like the easiest support. Like, I was playing with Johnny, my old roommate, and I was teaching him Moira, and like within 2 games of me saying literally all it is, spam heal orbs. Spam heal orbs till you get Cole, and then burn Cole. And it is the most simple, easiest thing to pick up. And then their stat line is like, I'm averaging, I think, 15,000 healing per 10 on Moira. So ironically, even with this DPS passive coming in that reduces healing, I've very rarely ever been able to put up that consistent stat line of 15,000. 10,000 per 10 on Ana is good. 11,000 is if you're crazy. Consistently 15,000 on Moira in like 3 or 4 games. Probably if I played more, it'd go down, but no other hero can do that. So that's kind of why she's the best pick. What was the other endpoint there, SVB? Because I actually kind of want to explain why she's good.
It was just about the loss of Ana potentially, and people feel like
it sucks.
A bad thing.
Lost Ana. How about Mercy?
Well,
Mercy players are struggling right now, and she's not good. And Ana and Mercy are both like unpickable in my opinion. Unpickable. You cannot pick them at all. They can't do anything.
I think Alari's pretty bad too, but that's just me.
On some poke maps, she has chances to be played. I've played her on a couple maps and gotten a lot of value on her, particularly her ult buff that gives her heal back. but like you have to be pixel perfect on your positioning, and it has to be the perfect setup, and your team has to do everything right. It's just so much easier to pick Moira or Kiriko and just do whatever the hell you want all game. So
Yep.
Yeah, well, there's my question then: is that okay? Like, there's a bias here because these are two very popular heroes, like Moira or Mercy and Ana. Are they're the two most popular supports for sure. I think again the stats the dev showed said that the most played hero was Ana, and we kind of anecdotally know that Mercy is like a very strong community. A lot of people singularly love Mercy, so we kind of hear a lot about it a lot when they're not being played, when they are a little bit weaker. But for all those people who main Moira, who main, I don't know, Brig or Lucio, they're probably like, I don't give a shit, fine. I have a dog shit hero for often. So like I'm fine with this. But is it a problem? Do we factor in play hours? Do we factor in popularity? And do we factor in something like Ana, quote unquote, feeling fair and balanced? I'll take it to Freedo, because Freedo, we haven't heard from you in a bit.
Yeah, I mean, I kicked off the Moira hate train that's gone around. So let me just try to respond to some of the things that were said. So often I'll try to remind you guys that especially two of you are insanely skilled at this game and forget that for most people, they can't duel the Moira. So the Moira gets to play obnoxiously. Sam will coach you to play the supportive way, which will work all the way into top 500. But the thing I hate is that she also can duel and easily throw damage orbs at players that either won't, like if you can play a competent Widow, this is not a scary thing to you, the damage orb Moira playstyle, because you can take 10 minutes to line up the shot and because she won't kill you fast. It's not that problem. It's just like you have to carefully punish that. You have to train it like a dog. Okay, it's like, oh, you knocked the trash over. Stop it. No, right now you have to address the problem immediately. This is how you're supposed to train dogs. Okay, I'm not advocating you beat your dog, but I'm just saying you have to immediately, when they do the problem, you have to say no. Okay, with a forceful, aggressive voice. We evolved with the species over hundreds of years. Okay, there's a man-dog relationship, and the same thing you should treat your enemy Moira. You have to train it like a dog because that's what they are, the Moira players. Yeah, the hatred's really, really strong. I know this is probably the most mad I've ever been about any part of the game ever. Another example. Okay, we got a friend on our side of the content creation pipeline here. Me and Ed have friends. One of them's named Hash. Good friend of ours, probably watching the show right now in your chat, SVB, I bet. Hash is a gold to tank player. He did placements on support. Never played support in Overwatch 2, ever. Gold as tank. Placed as diamond, smashing his face against the keyboard, just Wing into the enemy constantly. Not following the rule book of how to be a good teammate, like Sam's gonna say, no, playing like a moron, having no idea how to play. Placed as diamond, which is like decently high in this grand scheme of things with the way the re-ranks have worked. We can talk about that as well, like with the new rank on top, and they squished the ranks together, so there's less bronzes, less GMs, and like, some of our top 500 players are in GM right now, right? So you can kind of adjust for inflation or deflation, whatever. Then after placing was getting the biggest calibrations I have ever seen. Like, the bars like this? He's getting like this much, and it's saying calibration. You're an amazing support player. Here's all the stats you just got, all the Samito stats that you're talking about. Okay, this character is too noob friendly and too forgiving, and it's not ruining your games as much because your DPS players can actually aim. And the problem that I have now is like, while in some cases hitting shots is easier, it doesn't mean your DPS are going to pick those characters that are going to punish this kind of obnoxious pick, who's been buffed to have 65 damage per second when she used to have 50. That's a thing that and also, you guys might not remember the patch notes, but they increased the, what do they call it? Target acquisition radius of her auto lock, soft lock attack. So now it's even easier to hit. I was stacking with SVB in a couple games I played support. I prefer to be playing tank right now, but playing Moira, and I'm just like, try to remember, okay, 65 damage per second, and she life steals off of this. So there's lots of characters where I could be leaning back in my chair like this, like just kind of like vaguely. I don't think I think it's a constant state of life steal, but like I'm chasing her around as Winston. If she can hit me at all, I cannot kill her, and she'll get away over and over and over again. I have to shield her damage because her damage life steals for her. Then she has the 2 escapes on top of that. It's so okay. We might not agree on the Moira hate, but I think it's like toxic to the skill expression of the game for everyone always. So that's I mean, Sam originated I'm somehow angrier about Moira than Sam ever was. Like, Sam seems reasonable compared to the unhinged rant we're experiencing from me here today. But it's not just what the character does, it's how I see these players play. They try to do the most dumb things, and like, in order to counter it, I can just play diva and eat their stupid orb, and it's not that so much that it's hard to outplay, but it's just dumb. It's just a dumb way for the game to function. And so what I'm praying for all of us. Let's not try to balance the game up to where Moira is. I want Moira to not be the best support. Then let's look and admire the strategy of actually needing to position as these other heroes that are struggling right now. Anything that's like an anchor style support that needs to position is useless looking at the moment. But once we take the power from this overwhelming swarm playstyle, those things are going to emerge again. I don't want it to power creep up to catch up to how outrageous the pace of the game. Flat said something very interesting that I think like deserves a further analysis, considering the goals of what this patch was supposed to be. They wanted time to kill to go down, and I think he's right in saying that things die fast now, like especially tanks. Okay, tanks have 700 health. I think I've been playing all week, and I started to notice I don't even think I remember what it was like before Season 9. It seems kind of the same in a lot of cases, and some things kill me faster than before. Like, so let's rebalance it towards the vision of what this was supposed to be. It's supposed to be a bit slower, right? Like, not like less bursty. While in some ways it is, you're not getting one shot by a Widow, but now you get like 2 shot by a Torb. Oh, great. Like, that's so much different for me as a tank player. Like, those things need to be rearranged, in my opinion. And for us, that you should need to be careful in your positioning instead of these all-in rush heroes that have multiple escapes. Like, let's slow the game down a little bit so it's more sensible in the decision making, as opposed to just like nonstop ability spam. That's my vision and love for the game. Yeah, there was a lot of other cool points too. I forget where I was supposed to go with this. I think I went on the rage for Moira mostly, but counter swapping as tank, lots of things. Go ahead.
Yeah, we'll just pull it back a sec, because we've gone deep. We've gone deep, but don't worry, you'll never be as far gone as Samito until someone makes a Twitter account called Moira's Damage Orb with a profile pic of Samito's face on it. So until that happens, you're fine. Your Moira hate has not gone too far. You're not synonymous with this character yet. So I'm gonna take it to Flats now, because Flats has been very patiently waiting for his turn for a while. And there's 2 things you can go on, Flats. You can go on the Moira train. I know you already gave your thoughts on Moira, so if you feel like you've said everything you want to say, that's fine. The other thing, the original question I kind of posed to Freedo, but I could sense his burning deep hatred could no longer be contained, was about Ana and Mercy, and these characters being so popular and they're suffering obviously because of Moira supremacy, the nail supremacy. Is that okay? And how do we factor in stuff like pick rate and popularity and quote unquote fairness to giving everyone a chance to be the meta hero potentially?
I feel like there's an evil route to say here of like, Ryan's been terrible for a very long time and nobody gave a fuck you, but I'm not gonna take that route. I wouldn't say like you should be balancing heroes because they're the most popular, like, oh, most popular, make them stronger, like that doesn't seem like totally right. But I do think it should be like taken into account somewhat, right? Like, for example, if Ana is an insane pick rate because people are playing her all the time, is it because people enjoy Ana and she's good right now? Or is it because Ana's broken, right? Like, I think those types of things have to be looked at. And so like, they don't like end up nerfing heroes that are like not actually oppressive or bad, or just because they're getting picked a lot, because they're popular. But in terms for Moira and Ana, I don't really know how to fix them. Like point blank. But I wouldn't even say it's just them. It feels like any heroes that don't have like one specific blasting ability, like those are the ones that suffer, right? The reason why Zen is still really good is because like he has one thing he's really fucking good at, and it's making the tank's life miserable. Because you get the 20% Discord plus the 20% fucking DPS passive, you are not getting healed for the rest of the game. Don't even fucking bother. And so then you have like Bap, like his one thing is like, doing damage and healing together, having a little bit of survivability. Kiri's is like you've pretty much farmed for rush now. It's not like I don't see as much of like the flanking carries or going for kills all the time. That kind of looks like it's not really there at the moment, which is great. But like obviously hers is again like bailout abilities, but it's kind of like just worse than Moira a lot of times. Like Moira is just better, but there's a couple times you do see carries that Lifeweaver I would argue is also sort of struggling as well, although not like unpickable, but like his thing was like overwhelming healing, right? But now that healing's weaker, like inherently he's going to be a lot worse. But there is like one secret thing to him, and then the card key taught me that apparently Lifeweaver has the best shield break out of any support in the game, and it's like not even close. I was like, that's actually kind of nuts. And very small niche thing. It's not really going to matter, but I do think it's not fair for those heroes to be completely like unplayable. Even though Ana obviously was like the bane of the existence of the game for a little bit because like Ananade and whatnot, and I think it's like it actually is almost like the reason why Ana's so bad in a lot of ways to that is like Nade was a fight winning ability and it was super easy to land, but things die already so fast that it doesn't matter if you don't have the anti-heal, right? So it's like you can't really pick somebody to save by healing and doing damage to them. Or sorry, not doing damage, but healing and like shooting them, as well as like pick someone on the enemy team to blow up with your nade. They would die anyways. So like taking the trade is no longer worth it, as Sam was saying. You'd rather survive with your team and go in. So they definitely need some help. I don't even know where. I don't even think giving like Mercy more and I think a lot of Mercy players want like the Guardian Angel to go to like 1 second instead of like the 1.75 or whatever the fuck it's at nowadays. I don't even know if that would do it. I don't think it would. And for Ana, I'm a little bit worried because I actually kind of agree with Freedo. Is they shouldn't buff things up to Moira. It should bring Moira down. But at the same time, though, I don't know if that would help Ana very much. Like if Moira was worse, right? Like Ana probably needs something, or the DPS passive needs to come back a little bit, which I'm not crazy about the idea. Like I understand, like it's like that's the reason why we have like such a fast-paced game, but maybe it's a little too much. Maybe it needs to come down to like 15 or 17 or like something a little bit smaller, just because like at the moment things die so fast, there's no point in picking those heroes. So I think that would probably have more impact than anything else.
Yeah, I feel like Ana has suffered in the same way that I was talking about BAP, where it's like they were trying to balance these heroes before the Season 9 patch and before they added the DPS passive and the health going up. And obviously everyone was like, oh, Ana's a problem, nerf nade, nerf sleep. And we kind of saw that, right? She got like progressive nerfs. She got nade nerfed, sleep dart cooldown longer. Her damage got nerfed as well. If you remember, there was that brief period where she could 2-tap a tracer with 80 damage. And that was huge. And that lets you 3-tap Cassidy as well. Now you have to 4-tap him. And so like all these changes that were there, and then we brought that back. And now we've added this big wide arching change that automatically nerfs her because as Sam pointed out earlier, like the big win condition being the nano, you don't build that as fast. Healing is lower. There was like an occasion where I was playing Hollywood and I was playing Winston. I was just like, took like loads of damage, got down to 100 HP, and I just sat around the corner and then I was like standing in front of my Ana waiting for her to heal me. And it took her like 5 straight seconds to heal me. Like it took her so long to heal me because I was still tagged by the DPS passive, and she's just like pumping the bullet. She had to like reload, like just keep spamming, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, this takes fucking forever now. And that's when I'm not taking any more damage on top. I'm just standing AFK around the corner. So I feel like she's suffered
so many times there, like waiting, just standing there, and then she starts healing me. Boom, just like
it takes so long now, and it's really like something you really have to visualize. Like in theory, it sounds like, oh, it should be fine, but then you sat there and you're getting what, like 40 heals or something per hit, and you're like, oh my god, my 700 plus HP is gonna take fucking forever to come back. So there's definitely like a problem there where it's like she suffered in multiple things, and maybe we just revert some of the nerfs. Like if she gave her 80 damage back, or maybe even because now everyone has more health anyways, would the DPS Ana be a bit more viable? Reduce the cooldown on like the sleep or something? Would that help? Sam's shaking his head, so I'm curious now Sam's opinion. Sam, give me your take on the whole situation.
I know nobody likes somebody who says "I told you so," but I told you so. Ana wasn't the problem. We knew this was gonna happen every time, right? And this is my point.
I got my bingo card.
No, it's not this one yet. Not this one yet. It'll come up. It'll come up. It'll come up. But no, it's like Ana was not the big problem, right? You know, like again, like she got so many nerfs like leading up to this that like I knew it was gonna happen. Because I love playing Ana. She's my favorite like hero to play in the game. She's like the best design, one of the best characters ever designed in a video game. That's why she's the highest pick rate, because she feels so great to play, right? But everybody kept complaining, and they said, "Oh, Ana's too good. Ana's too good." I'm like, it's not an Ana problem. Like, yeah, the sleep and the nade are powerful, but like you keep nerfing her like this, like I didn't even think she was meta previously. Like Kiri and Bap were still getting picked over her, but she's just the most obvious one, right? So save my girl Ana. The way to fix it is you need to nerf the DPS passive. It's way too strong. You can either make it, I was going to say 10% if it's going to be 2 seconds. It could be 10% and it would still be pretty good. But maybe we make it 1 second of heal negation instead of just 2, right? But the reality is too many support heroes are bad, right? And this was my fear. And I'm going to wait. I'm not going to go there yet. We're going to go there when I start talking about tanks. So I'll save that for later, SVB. But I'm going to wait on this because, again, it's not ideal to have these fun heroes just be not pickable. Like, there should never be a state of the game where a hero like Ana is unpickable. That's not a healthy game. Now, the game is still fun because the core principles of, like, how you win fights is still enjoyable, and it's not everything's just hard immortal, right? But you never want that to happen. As much as I, don't like having Mercy on my team sometimes. I don't want Mercy to ever be completely unpickable, right? Because that adds diverse strategy to Overwatch. And what made Overwatch a unique game is that there's so many different strategies that you can do to win. It's not about what you pick, it's about how you play, right? That's always been what's been the most beautiful thing about Overwatch, in my opinion. I've said this on this podcast for 4 or 5 years now. So, look, I told you so about Ana. She got dumpstered this patch, and this is the worst. This might be the worst she's like ever been. I don't think Ana's been this bad since like GOATs. I can't think of a time where Ana was this bad.
She was pretty bad in Double Shield.
Yeah, but she could play double bubble into it.
That's
right?
True.
Like
That's
right
true.
now, she is unpickable. You will lose every single I know this SPB. Like I know when I make mistakes and when I don't make mistakes, right? I was playing Ana in high plat with a 4 stack of my buddies. I played the round perfectly. 0 deaths. Didn't die a single time. My nanos were perfect. My nades were perfect. I did literally everything right. I might have made 1 mistake in 10 minutes. We couldn't cap a point, right? I couldn't impact the game. And I was doing quite literally everything right. Because I know when I make a mistake, I make them all the time. But when I'm in plat, like I'm probably not going to make too many, right? It didn't matter, right? She's too underwhelming. Think about this, SVB. With the DPS patch, she might be healing 55 health a shot. I think Moira heals the whole team more than that per second with her base heal. Right? You know, so stop hating on my girl Ana. Bring her back. And unfortunately, the way to do that is not to buff her base stats up, because that's just going to make just nerf the DPS passive a little bit. The burst healers got affected by that more. I'm not. What do you guys think? Should you do it by the duration or do you do it by the health percentage? Right? I think 20% is a massive number. I'd go down to 15 and maybe a second and a half. Maybe do a little bit on both sides there.
Yeah, I think you're right on that actually. I'm a little bit more conservative with it. Is like, don't want to ruin what we got going at the moment, because things like, it's pretty good. That's why I was like 17 maybe, but that's also a bit of a weird number for it. But yeah, the only way that you change and make those burst healers better is that, because other than that, just buffing the numbers, and we just start going, just start chasing it over and again. There's no point.
Please don't buff the supports. Don't do that yet. I am begging you, because then they change Lifeweavers. Can I talk about Lifeweaver for a second? I love playing Lifeweaver. That hero should not exist. You can't miss. Playing tank against freaking Lifeweaver is the most irritating, obnoxious, least fun experience. Like, you're playing an AI. It's unironically, guys, it feels like you're playing a cheater. You literally feel like you're playing a cheater. And I love playing Lifeweaver. Like, I could go, well, I'm not going to say that on stream. It's a little funny. Whatever. It's fine. But, like, I go chill and play Lifeweaver with my buddies at night. They've popped the little Delta 8 gummy, right? They're just blasted, right? They're on Mars, right? And they're just playing Lifeweaver, right? And it's absurd. And you can't miss. You're playing, like, imagine we made a DPS that every shot automatically hits. That's what we did with Lifeweaver. And he sits in the back of the map. It's a more annoying Brigitte, which is crazy. I can't believe I'm saying that. Because Freedo, I told you this. He and Brig fill the same role in the support role. right? Except every second he's churning out a pack. It's like a repair pack had no cooldown and it was burst. It's like I played against it today. That's why I said that. But like the supports like Moira and Weaver should never ever be better than Ana, Bap, Kiriko, even Mercy. Shout out my girl Mercy, right? Because at least Mercy, you have to prioritize where you're going around the map. Everybody was saying I couldn't finish my Mercy on ranked GM. You should know better by now, okay? Like calm it down, all right? That was a fun experience for me too, because it was I did believe it or not, I can't. I got voice chat banned for the first time doing an unranked GM Mercy. That's what did it.
What did you say?
Dude, these kids won't take high ground. I'm sitting there telling them, I'm like, yo, take high ground. It is free. Walk your little ass up on the high ground. And I just had to, Freedo, you have to treat, because I get the support players too. And this is, I know people give me a lot of shit all the time because they're like, oh, he's a toxic DPS player. It's like, I played support in contenders level, right? I feel your pain. Ana's my favorite hero. But when these little newbie DPS you want to get out of gold guys on DPS, just take high ground. It literally is that simple. Walk up to the high ground and shoot. How about you don't sit on the ground against a Ramoxra and a Reinhardt and figure out what's going on? So yeah, I got chat banned for that. I don't regret it. I got to GM because of it. So, they deserved it. They weren't taking high ground. They tried to flame me and I was like, you're playing Mercy, you be quiet. I was like, sit on the high ground. And then guess what? They did it. We started winning. Can you believe that? But no, even Mercy, because again, she has the fair drop off where she's not going to be an offensive character. You have to make the correct decisions. You have to do that. What are you doing on Lifeweaver? What are you making correct on Moira, as Freedo said earlier, right? And I think if those outliers kind of get changed, the game will be a lot more fun. But the core flow of the game right now is good.
What a day. Samito's out here defending Mercy. He's not the one flaming Moira as much as someone else. He wants Lifeweaver removed. What's happening?
Dude, imagine telling us 5 years ago that this conversation would take
I know.
place.
Imagine. I'd be like, Sam, by the way, you won't hate Moira as much as you'll hate the next guy. There's a Giga Brig. He said there's a guy worse than Brig. Samito uttered the sentence, there's a guy who's worse than Brig. What a day. What a day on the podcast. The opposite of our bingo cards, really. This is some backwards thing. I want to take it to Freedo, because Freedo, he spoke a lot about the things that you've started with your rant, the fire that you lit. How do you feel now that's come back full circle?
Okay, so I'll attempt my best to talk general support. That's the subject we're on. I think something that we should have anticipated happening is when they intentionally attack burst impact. That's what the whole patch was about. Then burst impact heroes are going to be weaker. And Ana, oddly, is one of those. But I think there's other aspects of this that are going unnoticed. So I don't care about the DPS passive so much because some of the ramifications I like. One of them, it's going to guarantee that defensive tanks will always be good because blocking that passive, the stronger that passive is, the stronger a defense matrix will be. And I'm happy about that. I also like that supporting becomes more about your positioning and cooldown use, in theory, unless you're playing Moira. So that is where the survivability comes. So the big plays of those abilities matter more than just heal botting. Problem is one character is still capable of heal botting somehow. And I think we should have seen that coming. So just a small little explanation of why Moira is good for this version of the game. Because I want us to take a step back after this to think about the how this should apply to the rest of the game to fix this patch a little bit better. So Moira can focus fire. She has an escape, like I just said, is really good. And mobility. So her escape turns into a mobility, which gives her options. So she can go from DPS to heal. Having all that flexible options to your play is really, really good. Zen sort of has this a little bit too, where he can be multitasking, where he casts an orb this way, marks that thing, and can fight a thing over here. Whereas Ana is all burst in on that one play. It's got to work there, and you're done. And another problem that she has now is that, I mean, how many shots does it take to kill a squishy for an Ana? And how long would it take a Moira to just generally look in the same direction to do the same thing? And do we need long range? Is our snipers really good? Is far in the skybox anymore? No, everything's in Moira range now. So I think at the very least, I'd like to see Moira's range pulled in, the fade cooldown changed, and that I want to rework as well. But so I think that kind of explains a lot of the support play. I think once supports have to be disciplined instead of playing turbo speed, then we're going to appreciate the skill that it takes that role. Like I want that role to be as skillful as I imagine it to be once some of the easy BS is knocked down. Like I don't mind support feeling hard, but the thing this we got to remember, okay? When the role is weaker, the skill expression is higher on everything, always. And that's sort of how I feel about tank right now. It's really, really punishing, yeah. There's a few things that outlie. I think we wouldn't be at a major loss if all of a sudden tank had a percentage resistance to the DPS passive or to Discord. I don't think that would ruin the game. Those are probably good changes to consider. But I like how hard tank is because I think it does sculpt the battle in a meaningful way that matters. It's just that there's all these other things that are running around kind of better than they should be, in my opinion. And we should address that first before we try to power creep our way into this. Something I was trying to highlight earlier that I don't know, I think we kind of just breezed over it a little bit. The goal for this was to like make the game more discernible. I think, right? It's like things burst. You turn the corner, burst impact, die. That's bad. We don't want that. But now we've sort of just adapted all of our play, and everyone's playing these high tempo heroes, and the game's somehow faster and faster. What I'm just forgetting words. Faster and burstier than before, oddly, but just with team shooting now, because it's about mobility and team shooting. This isn't necessarily the best timeline we could be on. I think the best one is where it slows down a couple steps back, where we're thinking about those cooldowns strategically, and the positioning battles take a little bit longer to develop, as opposed to what Flats kind of said earlier, which is, I agree. It's like you got to be all in, all out. Like, look, there's a target we can kill. Boom. You got to go in now, everything focused, and the team fights, go like that. So if you don't have a button that says overload, fade out of the way, Suzu, teleport, if you can't escape 3 times, like you're a useless hero. It's like you're just going to be the one targeted. This is a problem I have because I keep getting Cassidy's in my game for some reason, which I understand, like the ceiling of this guy is insane, but like it takes a village to keep Cassidy alive. And if he's out of position for 2 seconds, he's just going to get focused by everything. And it's really hard to play around that. So, yeah, I think that's my final little support rant. Go ahead, Sam.
I'm going to give everybody a PSA, just because apparently most of the Overwatch community doesn't get this. Do not pick Cass into dive, please. He's garbage into dive. He's never been good into dive. If you want to counter dive, pick mobile heroes. I'm doing you a favor. The only time you need to pick Cass is when there's a tank like Junker Queen in front of you that you can mark consistently and force out with your damage. He is not good into dive. Stop doing it. You're welcome. Go ahead, SPB. Sorry, I'm sick of it too. It's absurd.
No, that's totally a fair thing to bring up and maybe helpful. Maybe we'll save some people something. I'm also worried we maybe, by uttering it into existence, we spawned a bunch of Moira players now. Like the effect of us talking, the effect of us talking about something is that people like hear the first part and then they like go away with it. And I see this often on the forums. Something like we'll say something and then the next day on the forums is like a long thread about like, did you hear about this? And all I know is in plat and gold everywhere, there's gonna be a spree of Moiras and they're all gonna be like, thanks, Group Up Podcast, thank you.
Let it happen, because I know Flats has reacted to some of these TikToks. I've said it for 4 years. Just let it happen. Let it happen. It has no utility. I better never hear that again. All right, let's see. We'll do it.
Let the chaos reign. I mean, so dude, let's shift it over to the tank side now, because Freedo brought up, he says like, oh, I actually enjoy playing tank this season. It feels like a challenge. And I agree with that sentiment. Whenever I've been playing support when I'm doing with Freedo, but before that I've been kind of hard locking tank. And I have enjoyed it, even though my support rank still consistently stays harder. And I guess I'm just a dog water tank. But I still enjoy it because there's a challenge to it. Like, I enjoy the challenge. Like, I didn't enjoy playing support in the busted support era because it felt kind of free. It felt kind of easy. And that's not really why I play, like, Overwatch as a competitive game. I play it for a challenge, to be kind of tested and to see what I can do with the limited resources I have. And I enjoy that aspect of tank. But the one thing that is frustrating about it is that the reliance on other people in many ways, and we'll bring it back to the tank overall, where it's like, the counter swapping that Samito highlighted, which is that you get counter swapped singularly, almost exclusively the counter swaps targeted you. Sometimes you can do your best, sometimes you can keep swapping, but then sometimes you need your team to do some of that counter swapping too, to make their tank not counter your tank, or whatever it is, or X hero counter your hero. But people still don't seem very keen on doing that. They just like blaming their tank. And then also, now that everyone's HP pools are up, killing stuff is very hard on your own. And it's good in a way because we've got this team-centric meta, right? We talked about DPS patch. That's how we started this discussion, the DPS patch. And I agree. And I think in ideal terms, it's kind of all the things that we want. It's dive is strong, which people were crying for a long time. They're like, we want dive back. And team-coordinated gameplay is really good. In Freedo, we've experienced this a little bit when we get like we have a stack and then we get a good 2 randoms. It's beautiful, right? We're all diving the same thing. We're all like targeting everything and where everyone's calming. And I remember in like that first week and a half, everyone was tryharding really hard. Everyone was in calms. But now that started to die down a little bit, I ain't hearing anyone yap anymore. No one's piping up except to be an idiot. And the coordination ain't coming either. Like the Genjis all of a sudden they ain't there, right? You're diving in. The Genjis are out there in Narnia. They're doing fuck all. So the DPS passive isn't really connecting the way I think it was at the start of the season when everyone was really motivated. And that's when tanks becomes really frustrating because then we're back to that whole, I'm just shooting this guy who will never die. Like, again, I was just talking before we went live that, like, you know, there was one occasion where I was playing Winston. It was like New Queen Street. It was like yesterday on stream or something. And like this Widow was like 50 HP and my Tracer had died to get her there. So I'm like, I'm in. And I jump on her and like I hit her with the burst, melee, like right click combo, everything, right? But there's a Kiriko right behind her, just holding right click behind her. And as the DPS passive wore off, the Kiriko's just doing this for the rest of the entire like 5 seconds. And I'm just there like tasering, hoping that this bitch will die. She will not die. Everything else dies around me. And I'm just like, well, fuck. Okay, then all right. I guess I'm fucking useless then. I guess I may as well uninstall the game. And I can tell by Flats' expression that maybe this has been his experience quite a lot. So I'll take it over to Flats now, and then Sam, you wanna go
Well,
right
just
now?
real
Or
quick,
you wanna go after?
another support that can't miss. Go ahead, Flats.
Yes, I was gonna bring up in your rant, but I was like, let him go. But that's another frustrating thing about Kiriko and a lot of the healing that comes out. It's just like compared to Ana, what everyone loves about Ana is you have to hit your shots to heal, and you have to hit your shots to do damage. There's nothing auto. There's no auto win. There's no auto free. The same thing that I used to love about Junker Queen, where it's like you got to do everything. There's no free BS ability here. Everything has to be earned. But Flats, how has the tank experience been? We've talked about the support power. How's the tank experience been?
It's fucking miserable.
Even after the Zen changes?
I mean, the
I know
Zen
you hate
changes.
Zen.
Yeah, I mean, Zen. The difference was Zen was the turn your brain off, pick Zen. No matter what, you can still get tons of value. Hard to kill, hard to dive, hard to even punish. You played ball a lot because the reason you played ball was because you could just run for your fucking life half the time. You roll through them and just fucking run. Because like their tracers on your ass. If they go Sombra, oh man, you're gonna have a terrible time. But you would at least survive a little bit longer. And then after the Zen nerf, ball is still very good, but not like you have to pick ball every game. And the whole reason for that is because Zen's now more punishable. You can play your Winston, you can play your Diva, you can play Sigma, right? Which has honestly become my bit of a pocket pick anytime I go against Zen players. But yeah, it's fucking miserable, man. That counter swap game is so awful. And it's not just the tank now. It's actually like beyond that. And you saw like, you remember like the start of Overwatch 2, there was like a flow chart, right? They pick Diva, you pick Zarya. They pick Zarya, you pick Winton. You pick Winton, they play Diva. Now it's fucked. It's just like, it's a giant chart now. And it's like, okay, that you go Ram, they went Ana, you gotta get off Ram. If you went Queen and they went Zen, unless it's on certain maps with certain comps, you're probably gonna get Discord and die, so you gotta go Sigma, and then you can play that. Or you could go Winston and all in, but only if you have a Tracer. And it's like, it's like doing fucking trigonometry to figure out what the hell you got to play this next fight. And it doesn't matter about your ults. Your ults are not impactful. And you can't kill anything by yourself because don't forget, everyone's all like, oh shit, we can kill things now. It's great. Things are awesome. Healing is still the same from before. Healing didn't get nerfed. So like all the tank players are playing on the last patch and damage wise. Right? So like we can't kill things the same way everyone else can. And I can't tell you how many times I've sat there tasing somebody and going, oh man, I wish I had the DPS passive, because I know for a fact that Moira I'm tasing is sitting there laughing because they're just going to fade away in about 3 seconds from now. And you know what? Their cooldown comes up in 3 seconds and it's going to take me 4.5 seconds to kill them. They're in no danger. Like, and you want to talk about like no follow-up? Like, I mean, dude, I was okay. I went on a bit of a losing streak last night, I won't lie, with Karq. We were having some miserable games. We lost every game we had a DPS duo out of voice. Every single one. Because, you know, they just run around the map playing whenever they want. And it's like, we can't follow up. We can't play together. Like, we're just fucking all over the place. So unless, like, they're, like, the god's gift to Overwatch, we're just fucked. And it's really frustrating. It's really, really frustrating because, yeah, people have always talked about like, oh, tank diff, tank's always been the strongest thing. I think I said a couple weeks ago, I was like, I feel like tank's not even that impactful of a role anymore. And I would say this patch even solidified that tank is now the weakest role in Overwatch, and is the one role that's there, people still focus on you the most. So you're almost like the quarterback, but you can't throw the ball. Your only thing is you hand the ball off now. It's like, what the fuck, man? Like, I have a whole D line and a blitz coming down, and I gotta read it all and sit back. And it's like, okay, we might have to go shotgun here. Don't matter though. I'm not throwing. I'm going. Whoop. And the best part of all is like sometimes the running back's not there. He just leaves. And it's like, oh, actually, no, you need to run the ball now. And it's like, wait, me? And now everyone's chasing you, and you're like, and you're not that fast because you're not that athletic. You're supposed to be throwing the ball, and you just get fucking clapped. And it's like, now everyone's like, yeah, you fucking blow, dude. And it's like, you're set up for failure 90% of the time. What do you mean? And it gets even more compounded if they play even certain support comps. Like support's weaker now than it was before. But if you walk out of spawn and they're playing Moira, Lucio with some type of either Winston Brawl, Diva, Ram, Queen, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of things you can kind of run. And you've got like Illari Kiri. You better have God's Gift to Overwatch on your Widow Tracer. You better have God's Gift to Overwatch. If you don't, oh, you in for a bad time. And it's just like, how is the role that has arguably the most pressure on it? Maybe I'm wrong. Go ahead, say I'm wrong. But arguably the most pressured role in the game has the least impact. Game in and game out. How the fuck does that make any sense? I don't know.
There's so much I love about this. Firstly, I love that like Flat's like literally seeing the light. Like there's literally like light shining on his face as he's like appeared as the Messiah, and then he dips, camera's gone.
I'm still here.
Yeah. And then also like the sports ball metaphor where he was like, I'm the quarterback, but I can't throw. And I'm like, all right, I follow. Yeah, European follows. And then he started talking about shotguns and blitzing. I was like, all right, you lost me, my guy. You lost me. I was starting with the metaphor, but I sort of vaguely understand. But yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think the way when a lot of people come in the stream, they're like, what do you think of the state of tank? The way I always describe it is like the tank doesn't win you the game, they can lose you the game. That's kind of how it is. It's like you're like, you can be bad and your team loses, but even if you're popping off, like it's never far from them just stopping you popping off. Like it's like, oh, I popped off for 2 fights and now like everything's gonna negate me, and then I have to like calm down my play style.
I feel that. I actually feel that a lot. And it's like the games where I lose my team the game, I feel it. And it feels like shit. Like it doesn't feel good. And you always get someone who's like, oh yeah, you really played great here. And it's like, dude, this is the one game out of 12 games where like I didn't play the best. But like, look what we have. Look what they have too. Like, we also have 3 people out of voice. We're playing fucking around the map, and they're playing high ground second point Dorado with 2 great hit scan players. Like, fuck, man. Like, this is what am I fucking fighting the Avengers? Like, this is awful.
Right, but it's like you got Illari Mercy in the Junko TP trying to run it down on Dorado B. It's like, well, what the fuck do I pick? Right? There's no way, nothing's gonna work. So I appreciate that, and I feel that pain as well from my limited time on tank. Sam, how about you? You also kind of shared the sentiment, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, I've said this for 6 or 7 months now. Like, the frustrations of tank don't come from balance, it comes from format. It just is what it is, right? Like, no amount of changing health pools or doing any of that is going to solve the counter swapping problem. That was caused by 5v5, right? I'm sick of saying it. Like, how close are we? We've now gone full circle in the game for the roles for the power being distributed between the roles, right?
Bingo.
Right? Yeah, you're right, bingo. Yeah, do it. It's just like at some point, people are going to have to accept. This is what I'm not telling you have to say 6v6 is better. But you need to at least accept that the reason why tank is like this is because of 5v5 roll lock. It's what it is. But where tank had the most meaningful exchanges previously was when there were 2 tanks with lower health pools and less powerful cooldowns. So there was kind of like an exchange between both tanks, right? The big ult fights where tanks would get team wipes or this 5-man shatters or whatever. Most of those combos, a lot of the times, were tanks. Like a grab, Rhine swinging into a grab. That's direct feedback, direct value to that Rhine player, right? Or even the monkey, like just cleaving into a grab. Like one really fun thing I did the other day, and I think I told you guys about this, is one of the most fun combos I had in Overwatch 2 is I think I copied Mauga as Echo, and because they had a Mwauga, who I completely misjudged in my tier list. He's definitely one of the better tanks. Cardiac Overdrive is an insane ability still. He's great at playing corners or poking. I was totally wrong on Mwauga. I'd say he's A or B tier right now because he's just hog with armor on top.
Yeah, I had to redo mine a little bit for him too.
Yeah, he's definitely good. But I built my cage and I caged them in, and I had a Ramattra on my team with ult, and it was just Fortnite. Like it was like there is the last circle Fortnite. They're in the storm. Everyone's dying. It was fun. It was fun. But like, listen, guys, I'm not gonna sit here and say, oh, say 6v6 is better, this or that. But people at least need to be honest that the reason why tank feels like this way is because this is what the format forces. Right? No balancing is going to get rid of counter swapping. And I'm going to quote Aaron in the first dev blog. They said they want to reduce hard counters and counter swapping in Overwatch 2. That was the big selling point of 5v5 PvP. It's done the opposite. And it's only done the opposite in the most noticeable way for the role that can only pick one thing at a time. So now on the maps like Dorado, where there's 2 hit scans sitting on high ground, you have to go Diva. And I sure as hell hope your tank player plays Diva. I sure as hell hope you don't get the Rhine player on Dorado or the Hog player or the, God forbid, poor Salt and Metro, dude. I got them on the other team again yesterday, and they had a Doom 1 trick on Havana, and we had a Sig player, and my other DPS was a Widow player, so we played Echo, Widow, Sigma into Doomfist, like, soldier casts, and they were just, like, they were putting up triple doubles, boys. Like, they looked like Russell Westbrook in his prime, like, fucking 14, 12, and 14, like, you know, it was tough, and there was just nothing they could do. I mean, I felt bad for him, because the game's unwinnable, right? So, look, I'm not going to sit here and hammer the bingo card home. Yeah, I would. Tank has some of the most fun new heroes they've put in the game. I love Ramattra, man. Like, I got to play Ramattra at open queue or in like 6v6 roll lock, like in customs. Dude, it was so much fun. Same with Junker Queen and stuff like that. Tank's problems, and if I guess we might have to go another 6 months of this before people accept the fact that the reason why Tank feels this way and is this way is not because of balance. Because guys, we've cycled through all the tank heroes. We've had the Hog meta. We've had the Orisa meta. We've had the Sig meta. Rest in peace, Reinhardt. We had the Winston meta. We've now had Ball be really strong too. We've had the Queen meta too. Guys, we've cycled through every tank hero. Earth to guys, at what point are we going to say this is the format? I'm done preaching. I'm done. I'm not going to be a broken record anymore. But I'm just saying we've gone through every hero. So I don't want to hear just balance the game. It's not balance. It's format.
Well, I was gonna bring this up anyways. It's actually funny. We have the Sam's Law command in my chat. So the Sam's Law is bringing out Samito's Law that any discussion going on long enough will result in a discussion about 6v6. But I was actually going to bring this up anyways. I was going to say to you, Sam, that I'm going to do you a solid, and we're going to have a mini 6v6 debate here, like very brief section in this one. And you've already kind of spelled out your arguments. So I'll just ask one more reiteration before I'm going to take it to Freedo, because I know Freedo, he wasn't part of the original 6v6, 5v5 debate, but I know he's been itching to kind of get his 5v5 flag
It depends
planted.
on what you want. Right. It depends on what you want. Do you have anything else to add before I go?
I was just going to say, do you want to just summarize to me? You still believe that 6v6 was better, or do you feel like, what is your stance? Like, this is what should be done, and then summarize it, and then we'll respond to it.
So I think 6v6 captures what I personally think makes Overwatch a great game better, and it's easier to distribute the power between the roles because they're evenly distributed, at least in a roll lock format, right? If we're talking strictly roll lock, right? Tank is unsalvageable if you want to get rid of counter swapping, if you want to allow tank to have a meaningful exchange in the front line every fight where there's more playmaking and more setups. Things that make Overwatch rewarding, 6v6 does better. You can play what you want. You don't have to counter swap, right? Specifically for the tank, right? Tanking will never get that back in 5v5 roll queue. Open queue's another discussion, right? Because you can then, the players then have the choice to choose which role is going to have to get counter swapped the most, right? I just think 6v6 captures that better. I think that the big combos are one of the most fun parts of Overwatch, like the swinging into a grab as Reinhardt, I don't know, even the meat grinder comps that Nate and I used to run in Quick Play, where we run Zarya Hog. There's a whole Hog into it. I still kind of get that as Echo, so like I'm not complaining. But if you want guys like Flat's experience to actually be any better, because we've gone through the entire cycle of heroes, you need to have a tank exchange that matters, and you need to have tanks that can cover each other's weaknesses, right? That's just what you need to have happen. If, to quote what they said in the first dev blog, Overwatch 2 is better because there's less counter swapping. 6v6 does that better. So again, it really depends on what you want. And this is why I haven't tried to hammer this home too many and say, oh, you're wrong to everybody else. You like 5v5 more. If you like 5v5 more, that's fine. But what I will ask you to do is be honest and accurate about the reasons as to why you like it better, right? I always said, and in my opinion, this is my opinion, subjective view, Overwatch is better when it's about how you play rather than what you pick. That's the beauty of the game, the player agency, the decision making that you make, and the execution that you have. If you want tanks to have more direct value, Flats be able to pick Reinhardt, because even in the worst metas, in the double shields or whatever it was, you and Emong were locking Rein Diva every day, Monkey Diva every day, and it was fun to watch. You guys enjoyed doing that. You can't do that anymore. And we've been doing this for about a year and a half now. We've gone through the wheel of fortune of which tank is meta, and it hasn't changed. And that's because it's not going to change. So it depends on what you want. If you want what I want, then 6v6 does it better. But if you like the more simplistic version and you like being able to kind of get your advantage by picking the right character, then you will like 5v5 more. You will like saying, oh, that guy's on this. Oh, I have more heroes in my arsenal. I'm going to switch to this and do it. But for me personally, when I'm in Diamond and I have to counter swap a Diamond player on tank in order to win the game, a player that I am exponentially better than, that's not a better experience for someone like me who sat down and grinded this game forever and said, you know what? I should be able to beat you on Doomfist if I want to play Doomfist when you pick this hero. Or if you go Zarya, if you start on Hog and I go Orisa to counter you, then he swaps Zarya, then I have to switch to Ram. You know, I'd like to play what I want. I don't want to play musical chairs. It's really stressful and it's just not fun. And believe it or not, you saw it in their first. Well, I haven't made the video yet. I'll make the video later, but that's all I got for now.
Okay, well, I'm gonna for now act as moderator. I'm gonna come in later with a hot take of my own, but for now as moderator, I'll just correct that they did say in the future, Sam, that they were like, when I spoke to Jared a year after that opening dev blog where you were correct that they said, we don't want counter swapping to be a thing. When I spoke to him again, he was like, yeah, we've changed. We don't believe that anymore. It was naive of us to think that there wouldn't be counter swapping in this game. Counter swapping is a part of this game, and we're now like, we accept it as like a part of Overwatch. So their vision has changed, but I do agree with your point that was the sold vision of Overwatch 2. And that I still a vision I agree with, that like it's worse when there's counter swapping. Now, Freedo, you've been, I'm sure, boiling, simmering, cooking, one might say, for the chance to get this 5v5 part back. So give me the 5v5 argument in response to what Sam has said.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I'm not going to muster the same fervor that I did for Moira hate, because I actually think this debate is so easily won with just facts and evidence and history that I think, unfortunately, Sam is forgetting a lot of it. So where do I want to begin? First of all, we all forget, seemingly, the 30-minute DPS queue times. Most people wanted to play DPS in every iteration and format in Overwatch 1. Almost for that reason alone, we can say 5v5 is better, because we do not have a queue time problem anymore, and we did for a big percentage of Overwatch 1's tenure as a game. How long was it? 6 years? 7 years? Lost track. In every format. Open queue, and open queue was historic for not having a actual functional team comp. So we had to have role queue. Then when we got role queue, it was a flex ticket queue for tank players that don't really want to be playing tank. So the experience Sam describes did not happen, except for maybe 2 months in the historic October patch, where people are, oh, the game's running good now. No. The vast majority of if 6v6 was easier to balance, then point to me long durations of time where the game was balanced and we all agreed that it was playing well. That didn't happen. And in fact, there was oppressive metas that dominated the game for long periods of time. That's the reality. That the power comping was the problem back then. We all agreed that counterpicking was kind of useless, and them trying to buff heroes that were supposed to counter the meta comp never worked. We all agreed on this. Now, the devs intentionally made a game where counterpicking is good. They wanted to do that. And I'm not exactly sure about the quote from that blog article. They did say they don't want hard counters in the game, but I'm not so sure they said the exact words, counterpicking won't be a thing. Because they, in every other context that I remember, counterpicking is okay. Like, they want counterpicking. They incentivized it with the swap on roll passive. And this is either dev team. It's hard to know exactly if, like, you know, there's been turnover with the team. It's hard for me to place exactly who thought what idea was a good idea at the time. They kind of handed it over. Some of them stayed, some of them didn't, whatever. I wasn't prepared necessarily to have this debate now. I wanted to make a video about it, but this idea is so bad, I just decided not to, because it's so in the past of that we're not going back to it. This is kind of, and SVP kind of agreed with me on, or he kind of convinced me of this, where I'm like, well, let's have another podcast about it. And it surprised me now in this moment. But weeks ago, I asked him like, oh, can we do another one? It's like, well, it's not going to happen. So I kind of am on that train as well, because it fixes so many other problems that are either outside the game, but I also think it fixes inside the game. On that podcast, Jake made, I think, the best point that the gap of gameplay for the other 4 players against 6 players, when their 2 tanks were better than your tanks. So you can describe it from the experience of the teamwork of Flats and Emong rolling everybody. How do you think the enemy team felt playing DPS or whatever? They never got to interact with the game at any point, playing against a coordinated duo of tanks as opposed to an uncoordinated one. The gap of that tank gameplay was too severe, and it made matchmaking games terrible. Now, we have a new problem now in Overwatch 2, where counterpicking tanks is ridiculous. But life is never about avoiding all problems. It's the opposite. It's about picking the problems you're willing to deal with and trying to craft the experience and strategy around that. Utopia doesn't exist ever. And anyone who has utopian claims, you're setting yourself up for failure with your argument. And as you know, one of your best friends, hopefully in the Overwatch community, Sam, you know I love you. I want you to just slow down a little bit, because the Overwatch community, a lot of them are in high school. They haven't necessarily gone to college. They haven't studied argumentation. They haven't read Shakespeare. Okay, let me just point out a few things that is going to drastically improve your ability to argue. You need to stop putting a post in the ground, a goalpost, in saying this defines the entire game. Because you did this with immortality abilities, for example. Over and over again, you keep saying immortality abilities ruin the game until they deal with immortalities, everything. Oh, wait, they actually just redesigned the entire game, and those characters aren't even good anymore. In fact, now Moira is good. Oh, I can't remember if you said this about Hog. A lot of people did. Separate argument. Me now on Hog. A lot of people said, Roadhog will never function as a 5v5 tank. It cannot happen. And then I come out and say, actually, no, I think he was pretty good, and this rework just makes him better. No, can't happen. That never will happen. Oh, he's actually one of the best tanks in ranked. Okay, so while we might not have everything, we might not have Hog be a teamwork style tank. We don't need to do everything in order to make it right. So what you don't want to do is to nail yourself to an argument and then need to move your own goalpost that you created. So possibly getting a little bit tilted, because being right about some of these things for so long and not getting the chance to say it, it pents up some frustration for me. The caffeine is flowing. I got notes, dog. Like I'm really working at this podcast. Look at me go. Let's see if I didn't miss anything else. Yeah, the 6v6 experience is overrated. Counter swapping is pretty bad right now. I would agree with that as well. I had this game on Servasa where the enemy tank was getting so tilted, man. I was like, I'll be on Hog. He switches to Maga, then I counter the Hog, and he's like rage typing me. I'm like, dude, you started this. But counter picking is rough. But I think one step further, the free pick open swap format is really what matters and sucks about Overwatch, where walking out of spawn, not knowing what the enemy's on. Oh, you're hard countered. Great. Got to go back to spawn. You're losing objective progress. We have the casual format of being able to freely swap always with no cost. And they've talked about maybe reducing how many swaps you get, or a draft or a ban format. They're thinking about that. Those things will improve, because what's interesting about Overwatch gameplay is textured matchups. To some degree, we want there to be some amount of countering, because there has to be. You're playing different heroes. Unless you actually want to play GOATS comp 6v6, everybody together, because that's the gameplay we got. I watched the pros play since day one, right? It was always about just playing the same comp a bit better than the enemy. And I know some of these TF2 diehards liked that gameplay. No one else did, honestly. We want to see two different comps go at each other. This has been the case in lots of esports over the history of the game. That's always better gameplay. Unfortunately, that means some will have an advantage. So the format has to kind of shift that up and down a little bit so that it isn't so much of an advantage that it's outrageous. So I do agree that the format needs improvement, but 6v6 wasn't it for like 100 different reasons. I may have forgot some of my points. I went on for a long time, but I'll drop the mic here and let the conversation continue to flow. I do like 5v5. Tank is hard and catches some L's, but this is the best case scenario we can have. Sam's going to explode if I keep talking, so I'm probably going to stop.
Okay,
Oh, yeah,
so
a couple
just 1 second. Say, hold it. I know I feel really bad
I'll
for
let you go.
I've never seen a man squirm in his seat as much as Samito in
I'll
that
get-
rant
I'll
where
get-
he's like,
I'm good.
"Let me out of bro." He's like let me out of fucking let me go. But just
Character
before
building.
flats, any
All right, let him go.
quick
Let him go.
quick
Honestly,
interjections
let
before
him
we
go.
go. All right,
Let
Sam,
him
off
go.
you go then.
Let him
Off you
go. Let him go.
Freedo. One, let's not put words in my mouth. I'm not arguing for Utopia. I never said it was perfect, right? And I would say the goalposts I put down were correct. Hog came back, his play styles never did. The kind of flanking off-angle Hog where you go take an angle, you can't do that anymore. That's what I was arguing, right? You can balance the hero and make him very, very strong, and then it just overwhelms every other tank. I never said that Hog would never be pickable. I said he wouldn't get his play styles back. The same with the flanking ball. That was about displacement a lot of time. Now it's kind of one-dimensional. You go in and dive. Number two, we talked tank synergies being the most OP. I disproved that in my video. Support synergies and stacking supports were always the most oppressive thing in Overwatch 1, and I broke down in every single meta that was to sustain heavy. We broke it down piece by piece, and a lot of the pros agree that it wasn't the tank synergies that did that. And I'm not necessarily saying that the tank synergies overwhelming everything was the issue either, because guess what? A lot of the tanks that were comboing together were actually killable in the first game, right? The only tank comp that you couldn't kill that the synergies were OP were double shield. That was a balance issue, right? Tank wasn't cute at all for a couple reasons. One, the experience towards the end was completely different and it was ruined by bad balance. And I'm not saying like, again, I'm not trying to argue for Utopia. I've never argued for the Utopia, but the reality is when a problem comes in front of us, like right now, the counter swapping in 5v5, right? That objectively is caused by the format. I'm not trying to argue or move a goalpost. That just simply is what happened. And I'm just pointing it out to be what it is and saying if you want it to change, it must be 6v6 or an open queue format where you can choose the second tank so that there is a little bit of difference in what's allowed to be picked and what isn't. So, you know, I would say I'm still right about the immortalities. I'm still right about Hog not getting those playstyles back. Is it necessarily a better game? I personally think it is, because this is where it's my subjective view, right? So I appreciate your candidness, and I think you're right, but also don't speak for me when, you know, I'm not arguing for Utopia. And that's something that a lot of people do when they try to approach this argument, is they kind of beat around the bush when the reality is the core issue that we're trying to say is very, very simple here. These issues in this game were caused by 5v5. The bad queue times in Overwatch 1, the game was abandoned. Everybody was waiting for the sequel. They never sat down and attempted to actually fix these issues via balance because they were balance issues, right? If you go back in time to when we were in Overwatch 1, nobody would have brought up 5v5. Nobody would have brought up removing the other tank. It was a brand new thing, and you can go look at their video when they announced it, which I'm going to drop my video here soon. And I am glad you got your chance to speak on it, because I don't think that you and I have had the chance to have the fair discourse to where I think a lot of people were giving you a lot of grief that I didn't appreciate either, because I was like, no, you don't know Freedo. You don't know how we have these conversations. Like, that's not how he and I are. And that's why we've been such good friends for a while, because we get to butt heads and clash ideas, and that's what makes good ideas come. It's not easy, right? They have to bash, they have to clash, and that's how we get the best possible outcome, right? But just to add on to that, I think every big video that's come out from guys like Iron, who worked very hard in his video, I think Hawk's tried to make his, from mine, talking about this. The idea and the gaslighting is what it is, from not you, but a lot of other people trying to say it was all the tank synergies, it was all that, when the support combos and the immortalities that denied value and AoE healing were what caused every single one of these big metas, and there wasn't a patch that came in to address any of it, because I'm not going to blame Team 4. We'll put that, it's very clear that was upper ends of Activision just kind of trying to make one dev team do 4 things at once. That just was impossible, right? I think that's all I had to say. That we went on for a while there. There was a lot of different things that I want to talk about. But again, you might just prefer this iteration of the game compared to me, which is fine. That's why I haven't gotten on my horse and been like, you are wrong. My issue is not with people who prefer 5v5. My issue is with people who are making the claims and saying, sorry, my issue is not with the people. It's with the claims that are inaccurate as to why 5v5 is better. That's my issue, right? And I'm staying on the Hog goalpost. His playstyles are gone. He just gets obliterated. And in 6v6, more of these heroes could get picked. And I think that's a better game when you have more options on the table that are actually viable picks. And it's about how you play, what you do. And those gameplay loops that diversified the game in 6v6 are still not back to this day, primarily for the tank role. I think DPS and support, they're still very, very similar. And I think DPS get more space on the map. They kind of fill that off-tank role to take those bigger angles. And with the bigger health pools, they are a little bit better at forcing that space on the side. But it's still, I like a game with a higher ceiling. 6v6 had a higher ceiling. I haven't touched tank. And also, let's talk queue times for a second, because I did forget this SVB. I'm going to go on queue times for a second as well. DPS queues were instant for a while. And they showed with Season 7, when a role becomes powerful and has appealing strength to it, like support was the highest queued role with the longest queue times for a while in this game. So if you want to make queue times better, in order for role queue to have good queue times, each role has to feel equally rewarding, right? Tank wasn't like that for years, because the tanks that were good overwhelmed Reinhardt. Winston Double Bubble was good for a while, but you need a lot of execution. And it was brain dead easy, like the Moira you complained about today, which I think you're right about. Brain dead easy for somebody to just use an immortality field, bash you as Brig, and deny all your value just by one button. It was a shitty experience. Everybody knows this. It's still shitty now. So if we want to accept 5v5, that's fine. I'm okay with that. However, we also have to accept that every time we come on this podcast, Flats is going to come out here and say tanking is shit. It's because tanking is shit. It is by far the least fun experience in Overwatch 2. And if we're committed to this and the queue times cause us and we can't get around that, that's fine. But people better globally accept, no matter how you balance this game, that will not change. Unless you go to like some kind of preferred role queue. Because again, I liked role queue, and I've had Nateson in my ear trying to open queue it up to me a little bit. And I'm like, I get it. That's a way to solve it. But you know, I'm not sure if I answered a lot of the points you brought up, but I will stand and say I never argued for a utopia. About the goalposts moving and putting my foot down. I'm still right about that. Those playstyles have not come back, even if the hero is individually strong. And it's very hard to point at Overwatch 1 and blame the tanks when there was so many different variables that cause people to not play Overwatch 1 anymore. I don't think it's fair to blame all that on just tank synergies, in my opinion, in 6v6.
Okay.
I would like to respond if possible. I don't want this to go on forever for the whole show.
You can
If
respond.
get the
I'll
last word
respond
after
after.
this. It's just like there's
No,
some
no,
things
no,
that
you go.
I think
You
help.
can finish it. You can finish it because I got
I'm
to
asking
finish
for
my
permission
video.
from SVB on this.
Yeah, so I'm just going to again pause and say, Flats, any quick interjections?
I want to go with the end. I think, okay, because so many people are like, Flats, fucking talk. Shut the fuck up. I am very in the middle. I think there's goods and bads to both sides. I want to hear all of your arguments on both of them before I say anything.
Okay, thank
Smart.
you. Freedo.
Something I forgot to say earlier. If you try to make the claim that 5v5 creates solo tank metas, you should not be making the claim that counterpicking is a huge problem. Which one is it? These are mutually exclusive ideas. Either we're counterpicking a lot or only one tank is viable. You're not realizing that you can't say both at the same time. Doesn't make sense. Another, again, backing up before I just like pounce and just, trash on this. Obviously, me and Sam agree on a lot of things. 6v6 did have a higher ceiling. There, support synergies are a problem as well. There's like a lot of things that we could agree on. So we're only really focusing on the minutia of this. But I think, and we'll let the audience try to pay close attention when Sam makes a definitive statement. Something is the case. Did it multiple times. Where's the data of any of this? Because from my memory, and I think factually, queue times were always bad for damage for the entire game of Overwatch 1. Everyone wanted to play it, and no format did we ever have enough tank players. Never. It was always the case that we were shorthanded on that role, making, So that's the case. Let's see. What else do we got here? I disagree about the support synergies because I think if we ask any random player of Overwatch, do they care more in Overwatch 1, let's say, do they care more what their supports were playing or if they had Reinhardt? Because a lot of you guys forget, for the experience of 95% of the player base, maybe, tank was one character, Reinhardt. That's it. You either had one or you didn't know how to play the game. And the gap between the playability of that versus 5v5 is huge. Going free to play now, most players can kind of jump in and sort of get the flow of what's going on with the game. Back then, it was miserable to play any other type of comp. They still don't necessarily know how to play dive, for example, but the gap between that is very much fixed. And we have a shooter game as opposed to, we better have a couple MOBA characters. Like, everybody wants the tank synergy in front of them. It feels great. Oh, my tanks have synergy. The game's great. The grab combos, 6-man shatters, everything's wonderful. But most of the game wasn't that. It was, what the hell is my tank doing? Gosh, I wish he was on Reinhardt. My experience sucks. So we can argue about the top tier experience. Flats is going to pout for the next 6 years about the tank experience, doesn't like getting discorded. We could tweak that. I agree with a lot of that, but I'm advocating for the Plats. Okay, I'm the Dr. Seuss guy, who's the little guy with the
hat, or is that?
No, the orange guy. I speak for the trees. Okay, I speak for the Plats. That guy.
Lorax.
Lorax. There you go. I'm the Lorax, and I'm also the shortest among you guys. I like being on the podcast because I can shout into the mic and look as tall as you. When we meet up in person, I feel like a dwarf. Okay, especially next to the Flats, who's like actually 10 feet tall. Anyway, honestly, if Reinhardt was a real person, I think he would treat Flats like his big older brother. That's how big Flats is in real life. Okay, you don't really get the sense of scale on the webcam. Anyway, I think, let's see, where are we at here? We asked for counter swapping in Overwatch 1. The community did. We said counter swapping sucks. It doesn't work. They have a comp, we don't. I can't counter it. What do we do? The devs created it like this on purpose and are making it better. So we have to just accept that it's going to be part of the game forever. It's part of the format. I think we could tweak the format to make it less oppressive and annoying and reliable and strategical as opposed to just, rock, paper, scissors. But it was supposed to be part of the game design to begin with. And I think you should be careful because oftentimes you define things as correct based on your opinion, as opposed to maybe the dev's vision for the game, which they created. They kind of get to define what it is, or for the average player. So when we kind of we're equivocating and getting into the weeds of like, well, yeah, Hog's really good, but I what I meant was his playstyle. No. You don't get to do that. You don't get to redefine what being good is.
I get to do that. I said,
yeah, but
I said that. You don't get
Okay. I'm gonna step in here. I'm gonna step in here for a sec.
Moving the goalpost.
I'm gonna step in here for a second, just because we're gonna try and keep this to discussion about the points of what is better, 6v6, 5v5, not necessarily arguing for getting like Samito per se. Like I'm not so concerned what Samito's takes were or weren't. It's more about what is better for the game. So we'll stick to what is better for the game.
Okay, so we have a counterpicking game. That's part of it. If a character can function in the counterpicking game and be useful, that makes it good. We can say we would rather it be something else, but that's not working within the system that we're operating in. When I say utopia, I'm not saying you're going to think all your ideas are perfect. That's not what I mean. What I mean is if you don't operate within that system, we're imagining that we should just have an entirely different system. We don't. We have a counterpick game. So if a character is a good counterpick, it's a good hero, it functions within the system they created. I don't try to tell them and dictate to them how they should design the entire game. I just want them to balance the game they actually want to make, which is counterpick game-a-thon. And that's kind of what they wanted Overwatch 1 to be, frankly. And a lot of us asked that to be good, and they made it good. So, yeah, I think we just should be looking for data for a lot of these claims, and I don't think you have it. Like, queue times were bad forever in 6v6. I think I said that already. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Like, I'm happy with that. I can't really remember what's been said fully, but yeah. Overall, okay. I do like 5v5 better. I am a player that likes the counterpick. I think a lot of players like that too. The playability of the shooter game itself is better now. Too much of 6v6 was not a shooter game, and we were praying that we would get some MOBA players in to fill the queue times, and that never happened for 6 years. So while maybe the peak beauty of the competitive esport game, Overwatch 6v6, has higher potential, would agree on that for sure. We just did not have the player base to sustain that long term, and 5v5 is sustainable and has been sustainable. And the queue time argument about supports, agree with that as well. Broken role. Having a broken role is probably not good for the game regardless, but I think that also only really applies for high tier matchmaking. When I say high tier, I mean maybe like top 5%. I'm not exactly sure if even when support was broken, if it was the most popular. Like we have to be careful having a overly high level focus on this, because what matters just as much is the queue times for quick play, the queue times for the 70% of players that play this that, are just trying to have fun. Those queue times were not necessarily as bad, even when support was broken, I think. I could be wrong on that, but my queue times are always a minute on every role, just about. I know Sam shows us his queue times because he's the best, God's gift to Overwatch in many ways at every role. Like your queue times, even for queue time, for quick play, are long. But I think, yeah, it's got to function for all players, and I think this version of the game can.
Okay. Thank you. And of course, this is not to say this is the final word. By no means is it the final word on the topic, but it's a good summation, and I think you guys have done a good job actually keeping it pretty brief. So I respect that you did. Heartwarming moment for me because I appreciate just the exchange of ideas here, and Sam in particular. I feel like you kept it very respectful, so I appreciate you, and I love that we can have these healthy exchange of ideas, and I love all three of you guys. Even though we've had one silent partner for a while, so I'm gonna take it to him for a little bit. Flats, you've heard now two sides of the argument. I've got another thing coming in a second, but you tell me, what did you feel about all of that as someone in the middle?
It's a lot. There's a lot to unpack there. To be honest with you, I think there's some points that are maybe being like either misconstrued or misremembered. I think one of the great points is like queue times, right? Queue times in Overwatch 1 were very long for especially DPS players. That's how we kind of got like the React video meta, where everyone would just watch videos in queue. You'd watch Daily Dose of Internet and food videos or whatever. But even today, like, hell, like I'm not even that high ranked anymore. Like, I mean, like, yeah, I guess I'm like top 100, top 500, but like, fuck, that's like Masters 1 right now, which is kind of embarrassing, but whatever. But the point is, though, it's like even my queue times like playing are still like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 minutes duo queue with car queue, and car queue's not super high rank either. So queue times are not like they're instant anymore, like at this current stage for any role. And going to 6v6, I think would probably make it even longer for the DPS and support. But then again, support had super long queues not too long ago when the role was broken. So I think it depends on a lot of different things, you know, and it's like, what is fun? And tank just ain't it. Like, it's just not fun. Like, tank, people play tank because they enjoy playing tank either in Overwatch or other games, and it's always been the role that people played the least, because at the end of the day, Overwatch is a competitive FPS, like a first-person shooter, and most people in first-person shooters want to shoot things. That is the appeal, and that's okay, and that's what it is. But at the same time, though, the experience is just so bad that, like, you know, we make arguments that, like, you know, in Overwatch 1, you know, you had to play the Reinhardt guy. Dude, that happens in Overwatch 2. Like, most of the low-ranked players play Reinhardt. That's why, that is actually the number one reason why, that was at least quoted to me, is why they can't really change a lot of things with Ryan, even though he's fucking terrible in higher ranks. It's like, even though his pick rate's low and, like, people, like, he's just not good, is he's so good in the metal ranks that if they buffed him, they would dominate. And, like, they couldn't kill him. Because that's just how the game is played in there, and it's still played like that to this day. So I don't totally agree with that, but at the same time, though, there's also a lot of good points of, like, you know, you love the tank synergy when it's on your team, but you hate when you get the fucking, you know, Zarya hog and don't know what they're goddamn doing. But there's also a lot of merit in the fact that the balance philosophies of Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 are very, very, very different. We never would have got these passives that we have today in Overwatch 1, and I believe Jeff Kaplan's, you know, himself, his philosophy with Jeff Goodman back in the day was to be slower with patches and let the community just figure it out. And so, like, they were kind of right sometimes where we'd be like, yeah, it's double shield, and then like 2 months later you'd start to play some double bubble and whatnot. But at the same time, it was so slow, it was so ass, it was so fucking terrible that, like, it felt like shit, right? And I bet even today, like, if we had slower balance patches, I bet things would slowly change. Like, people would figure out, like, certain comps are better, you know, like, oh, you know, over time we figured out, like, okay, this comp is slightly better, we could play it, but it doesn't feel good for a modern day FPS game. And if you look back at actually Siegel's State of Overwatch 2020 video, if you look at all of his points, we're actually at the exact opposite right now. Like genuinely, like, all his points of things that were good, today's Overwatch is the opposite. And like one of them, you know, was like fast patches. That was actually when they had kind of finally said, all right, we give up. We admit it. We're going to do faster patches every 2 weeks. And that was what they did for about 3 or 4 months. And then they said, we got to go work on Overwatch 2. Sorry about that. Good luck. So, like, at the same time, I can't help but sit there and go, well, even today's Overwatch could probably technically be better if they patched a little bit quicker. Because I think the once a month format's too fucking slow, and they might sit there and they point like, well, you know, when we do a new big balance patch at the beginning of the season, we'll make quick adjustments like within a week or two if we need to. I'm like, yeah, but that's just like panic adjustments. Like, okay, we fucked up something. Like that should be and maybe I'm a little bit selfish for this, standard that if you like fuck something up really badly, that you got to fix it. You know what I mean? So like, but that doesn't also take away the fact that the game needs to be shifted up constantly. And I don't think 5v5 has had the fair chance for that. But I also think that 6v6, in a lot of ways, you know, made Tank feel better. And I'm not advocating for it in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, like, I'm not really sure how you solve the counterpicking thing. And I think Sam is right that there isn't. And I also want to reiterate and go back is, yes, going into Overwatch 2, they did say they wanted to get rid of counterpicking. I know that it's like they've changed their stance because the reason behind that, and I know like it was like, well, I'm not sure if they said it exactly. I can give you the reason why they said that was because of Heroes Behind the Battle Pass. And that was supposed to be people's argument was if counterpicking so important in Overwatch, Heroes Behind the Battle Pass is going to make the game less competitive. And they said, no, we're going to make counter swapping less important. And that's the point. And like, yeah, they walked it back later and they said, oh yeah, we're actually not, you know, we were naive for that. But Heroes are still behind the Battle Pass. And the whole selling point behind that was to get rid of that. That was their point. So I don't necessarily think just because they changed their philosophy, it means they're right. Like, I think they say things very often that are just fucking stupid. I'll give you an example. And I love Jared. I think he's a cool dude. But like when they said that they don't compete with other FPS games, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, Apex put their patch out the same day as you for a reason. Like, they're fighting with you. They're competing for the same audience of the free-to-play FPS seasonal players who go play Apex, they go play Valorant, they go play Fortnite. They go play like whatever the new flavor of the month is, whether it's like the finals or whatever. Those are your player base that like they come and go quite often. They fight for you, and it's like they say like, oh, like we're not competing. That's not true. And I think we have to sometimes sit there and go, yeah, just because they said something doesn't mean it's gospel. That being said, between 5v5 and 6v6, I think there's arguments on both sides that they have never been given the full treatment. Because I think 6v6 could absolutely work if it was given the same attention of the today's Overwatch team. Because Overwatch from 2017, even 2018 onwards, really didn't get much attention. It was very much kind of left to its own. The hero patch cycle slowed down significantly. The cycle of heroes we have today is 2016, 2017 Overwatch. 2018, 2019, it had slowed down significantly. So like even right now, we're back to the beginning. We're not even faster than Overwatch was back in the glory days. We're at the same fucking pace. So it's not like today's like, oh, we have so much more content or whatever. Like, yes, there's other pieces of content, but it's the same as old Overwatch. So if we talk about balance and we talk about 6v6 and we talk about, you know, the pain points of the game outside of queue times, I don't think it was given a fair shot. And I think today's Overwatch would give it a much better shot than it once was given. That being said, though, I don't think it's the end-all be-all because it will definitely create problems. Just again, queue times will be insane. Tank diffs will feel terrible. But you know what? I'm just going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say it. I would like to see one of the quick play hacked be a 6v6 for a couple days and just let it rip. See what fucking happens. Like, cook up a patch for a couple months, you know, like on the side, something small, like, you know what I mean? Something to readjust it. Send it for like, you know what? I know, like, you know what? Send it for a fucking week. Don't care. Like, I know they said in the last blog, like, oh, we're gonna do quick play hacks in like smaller formats. Don't care. This isn't completely changing like the actual the pace of the game. It's changing the way it's played entirely. And like plaster, it's like this is a 1 week only thing. We just want to try it, you know, see how it goes. I don't care. Go if you're really scared, put it in the experimental card. If you're really fucking scared. But like, why not give it a shot? Because I think you said something, Freedo, that I actually have agreed with for a very long time. And it's like, why are we even talking about the 6v6 argument? It's not happening. And you know what? I sit here and I think to myself, why is that? Why have we all just accepted that as gospel of like, it's been too long, we're not going back? Why not? This Overwatch team has actually proven that they're willing to walk back bad changes. And I believe in them. I really do. I think this Overwatch team is much better than, you know, I don't want to say much better than, I guess. I want to say like they're much more interactive and much more active in communicating, and they're willing to try shit than Overwatch in the past. And I believe that if they truly believed that they were making a mistake and something wasn't actually being good for the game, they would change it. So, you know what? I think I'm still a little bit more in the middle, but I'm not gonna lie. I think I've warmed up a little bit more to 6v6 as time has gone on, just because counter swapping is so terrible, and I don't think it is genuinely fixable. But I'm not saying we oh, bring back 6v6. I would just like to see it tried. I just like to see it tried again and see if we can because if I go back and play 2CP, I remember instantly why I don't want to play 2CP. Would the same thing happen with 6v6? I don't know.
Now here's the can of worms you've opened. I'm sure Freedo and Samito have a lot of thoughts on that. Everything you said. I think firstly you did a great job, but I'm going to chime in now. So I think you did a great job summarizing a lot of the fair both sides points, and I agree with a lot of them. I think I'll respond to the last thing you said first about like put it in a quick play hacked, and I agree with you 100% that I think this new dev team would do any change if they thought that's what was best for the game and the community wanted it, because they genuinely have shown within reason, like, if we were like, hey, make everything in the game free, they would be like, well, sorry, we can't do that.
Obviously, yeah.
But they have shown a willingness to experiment with a lot of ideas, and even just the format changes that they're seemingly willing to make, and the things they've said they're open to trying, right? They're like, oh, we're trying hero bans, we're trying removing counter swapping a little bit, we're trying, like, you guys said we don't like burst, we've raised everyone's health pools, we've done this, we've nerfed supports, we've nerfed healing, so they are willing to do everything that we are like pointing as pain points. My only question is, it's a philosophical step that like it ushers in a new era that it's a little bit dangerous, because I think that the problem with like putting 6v6 in a quick play hack for even a week is there's no way people won't like it unless they handle it terribly. The nostalgia will just dominate. Like, people will be like, yes, the 2 tanks that I wanted, the synergy that I wanted, amazing, I finally got my Ryan Zarya. Like, no one's gonna min-max the 6v6 quick play hacked. They're gonna run Ryan Zarya, they're gonna be like, oh shit, I get to try Ramatra Doomfist, right? They're gonna try all the fun things that they want to try. It's gonna be a delightful experience, and then they're gonna go back to the devs and be like, all right, now make it a thing in the game and balance it. And we're back to where the fuck we are right now, which is like, as you said, I think there is merits to both of them, and I'm also like someone who's like, there's merits to, honestly, here's my take now. I think you could make anything work in Overwatch. I think give people with enough knowledge of the game, time, a few balance patches, and the resources, and they could make just about any format work, right? They could make 6v6 work, they could make 5v5 work, they could make open queue work. So I don't really stress about that part. I think, I 100% trust. If I gave like Sam and Hawk and a bunch of these guys who are passionate, they'd make a stellar 6v6 patch and it would work. But ultimately, the way I view the game is the two things that we should prioritize above and beyond everything else is like, is it playable and is it what the players are seeking? And what I mean by playable is queue times. We'll go back to this. It's not a sexy argument, queue times. It's really not. But it is ultimately perhaps the most important argument, is like, we forget that before role queue times were barely a thing, because all you needed was just to match someone in your elo. Like, you had one SR and like 5 people, like, all you just need to grab 12 people who are diamond, boom, you've got a lobby. Adding role queue immediately added a bunch of queue times, and we know empirically that it became a problem because they wouldn't have needed added priority passes if it wasn't a problem. Like, priority passes were fucking awful, and let me describe them, because there's probably a lot of you who don't even know what the fuck they were, which is that, like, ticket farming. So basically, they had this system that they added because nobody wanted to play tank towards the end of Overwatch 1 for the last like 2 years or something. There would be a role, whatever role was the least picked, literally always. I don't remember a single time seeing this not be tank. If you picked the role that was the least picked, or you flex queued, they would give you priority passes, and you would get, I think it was like, they changed the number a little bit, but I think it was 2 for a loss and 6 for a win. And a priority pass, if you queued with a priority pass, would increase your queue time, or decrease your queue time, sorry. So, yeah, decrease your queue time. So that, and basically it became, you needed to have a priority pass if you really wanted to play realistically DPS, and sometimes supports, depending on what was being played. You basically, if you queued up DPS without a priority pass, you were in for like a 20+ minute queue time, you were smoking, you weren't going to play the game. So people had to like lock tank begrudgingly. They'd lock hog, AFK, like off in the back line somewhere, doing nothing for the team. And they'd get 2 passes even at a loss, and 6 if they, sometimes you just get an auto win, right? You just farm your 6 passes, and now you got 6 games of DPS. So the queue times are just a big issue. And it's, I think, something that like we underestimate. It's like problem for like what it causes, especially for the more the casual you are, the more it's a problem. Even I decide what I play by the queue times. I don't like sitting in queue times. So like if support is the least pick role, I pick support. If tank's the least pick role, I pick tank, because I want to play Overwatch. I've launched this game to play Overwatch, not to sit in queue for another 5 minutes, which a lot of our competitors, to go back to Flat's point, don't have that problem. Like, it's really fast going into Apex. It's really fast going into most other Warzone or any of these battle royales, really fast. And, a lot of other games will be like 1v1 or something, and they're fast too. And, Valorant is fast. So you don't want your players sitting in queue times because they're not playing the game and they're bored. So whatever part is queue times, A, is good. And B, it's just like give people a fun playing experience. And so we arrive at my hot fucking take. Open queue is the way. 5v5 open queue, but with a cap of 2 max per role. That's what I want to see tried in a quick play hacked. Because I think what it gives you is no queue times. And B, the flexibility to pick these different comps, right? If you want your tank duo, you can have a tank duo. And you can have, and that way I think also the benefit is each of the 3 roles kind of competing with each other rather than what happened in original open queue, which is that DPS ceased. Yeah, DPS ceased to exist, right? You were never going to get a DPS pick. Or if you were actually going by what happened in Plat, it was like 4 DPS. In theory,
the Overwatch videos, did you remember seeing those where it's like the animated shorts by, I forget, I think, oh God, I forget what it was, but they were really funny. I agree with you, SVB. You go ahead, finish.
Yeah, so I think like you get the flexibility and you're going to get at least a DPS, and also you get basically the wider state of the meta balance is more apparent, right? It's like if support is the strongest role, people are always picking 2 supports and, like 2 of something else, and one, like whatever the one is, you're getting told this is the weakest role. Buff this role, or like buff the characters in this role. So I think obviously it'll come with its own problems. It will come with its own downsides. But my hot take is that's what I want to see experimented with. Small queue times, still 5v5, which brings some also like wider benefits of like other games. Like most other games are also 5v5. The server load is increased with 6v6. Like lots of little small things that like are realistic, and less players in the lobby means quicker matches again. 5v5 open queue, max 2 of any role. That's my hot take. Peace out. Thank you very much. Samito, Freedo, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So when undoubtedly it is the case that 2 tanks synergizing together is the most oppressive way to play your format, because we've already seen your format. Like the reason why we asked for 2-2-2 is because it was the pro format in open queue 6v6. Everyone just assumed that's the most efficient way to play the game, and players that the 99 percentile, everyone who tried to play quick play back in the open queue format couldn't get 2 tank players because it's the least popular role. So they had to force it to be role queue just so that you could feel like you had the pieces to even play the game. It would be like this. It'd be like I play chess with you, SVB, and based on the whims of my pieces, they pick the pieces I have, and like your pieces choose to be all queens, and mine for whatever reason like pawns because pawns are cooler and have a nice shape to them, right? Like that's the system we had basically. And one step further, what I would say is what we're going to realize is what you're describing is just the same 6v6 problems we always had, and the real thing we need to do is the picking format, the counter picking, as well as how we draft heroes, selecting them. It being free pick is the more obvious thing that is actually the issue, because we can limit counterpicking in the current version, or how you freely select things. Selecting the heroes was the problem in every single case. They try to force you down a lane with role queue, but no matter what, we have the same issue.
Yeah.
Most importantly, how would it improve the gameplay experience, right? Because we always have rose-tinted glasses on this. Now that you have all the tools to play, we're worried about counterpicking, which at least is a thing you can contribute to no matter what role you're on. Whereas in those days, there was no counterpicking because you just lost. There's no point. They have 2 tanks, you don't. Okay, well, you lose instantly. And I know you feel like you lose instantly now. Yes, but there's always like a way you can get some value somewhere. You might still lose, but there's a big difference between no value and some value but still losing. We forget those days of no value ever because 2 tank synergizing can literally deny all damage. Let me say that again. 2 tank synergizing can literally deny 100% of damage where you maybe have one guy playing Roadhog, AFKing like you're saying, and nobody on that team can play. Is that really the world we want? Or do we want everyone to be able to kind of contribute and at least like lose while shooting at the enemy at some point? Sorry, I know you wanted to talk there, and I kept going.
No, it's totally valid. Like I said, I don't want to turn this into a whole nother discussion, so I'll just keep it brief. In that, nothing will have its flawless thing, as we've already established with the 66 thing too. But I think the difference with this versus pure open queue is you have to have at least one tank. You're opting into each of the roles, and it's coming at the cost of something else. So if their team has 2 tanks, well, they don't have 2 supports maybe, or they don't have 2 DPS. And so unlike in open queue where it's like you have to pick or role queue where you have to pick 2 tanks, but they'll pick 2 shit tanks, versus now if they're like, I don't want to pick tank, well, at least you can pick a quote unquote meta DPS that you want to pick, and that can have value. And if it doesn't have value, then we know that like, okay, we need to buff the DPS role, versus like I'm just gonna pick the 2 worst tanks because I have to pick a tank. So I think that's a benefit. I forgot what the other points were about. I think ultimately the biggest thing that I champion it for, and I'm also very open. Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of the draft idea, so I'm also open to the draft idea. As we've discussed it before. I love Dota. I've been grinding Dota with Jake and Fitzy every night after I stopped playing Overwatch. We play for like 2 or 3 hours. They're fucking goated and they're teaching me. So I'm all for the draft. But I think what I like about this is that what I think most people nostalgize about early Overwatch is the flexibility, is the like, I want to be able to pick whatever I want, man. I don't want to be restricted by the game. And that like constricting feeling, I think, is what like, I'd rather a less quote-unquote balanced game and a less quote-unquote competitive game that's freer and more open, no pun intended with the open queue, than a game that's like constricting but balanced, if that makes sense. So
I just can't agree.
No.
Like okay, what do you imagine? Okay, it's gonna be a kind of complicated question, but also a simple one.
Mm-hmm.
What do you imagine Overwatch is? What is the video game Overwatch? What would you categorize it as?
I think it's a game where you pick your favorite fucking heroes and you run around the map and you shoot each other or whatever, you tase each other. I think like there's a it's just like I think fundamentally what it boils down to is it's like it's way more about the heroes than anything else. And it's about playing what heroes you like, you find fun. So it's like you pick a hero, you run around and you shoot.
So if this was 4 to 6 months ago, I would agree. But I feel like they're going back down the competitive route again. Like they want to make Overwatch competitive. Like they have said, they've looked at the writing on the wall and said, there's a lot of people that are casual about this game, and they will continue to be casual about this game till the end of fucking time. But they've lost the like luster of what was originally Overwatch with Overwatch 2 launching. And I wouldn't be surprised if their player numbers are way down, like across the board. Yeah, they lost China and stuff like that. So it's like, it's hard to tell how much actually came down, because like when you lose an entire fucking region and it's that big, like of course the numbers are going to look lower. But I feel like there's probably a lot less people that are playing now than at the start, right? And what do people want out of a shooter FPS game? Yes, Overwatch is a MOBA shooter, like it's like a hybrid, but it's like, what do they want out of it? Like, do they want the game to be just like run around the map and just have a good time, or do like they want people to try to win? And like if we've seen what they saw about quick play, right? Like, which I just personally disagree with, but like they said like they want quick play to be like a sweaty experience, right? So like by that logic, if they want even quick play to be super sweaty, they want the game to be a competitive experience, right? And a competitive experience isn't just picking whatever hero and running around the map. That would be old Overwatch, because as Sam was saying earlier, where you could play almost any hero and make it work. That's not what Overwatch is right now. It's playing to win at all times. And so with a lot of the stuff that's being like kind of like proposed here would remove any sense of competitiveness of the game. And it's like, not any sense of it, sorry, it would lessen it by quite a bit. And where it was 6 months ago and like the route they were going, yeah, like that was their decision. But like it does not appear to be the decision anymore. Like they've kind of like, it looks like they went, we want to make Overwatch a competitive game again. We want to make it competitive, like, and everything, even esport, like they're starting over. Like they completely are starting over, and like fuck it, we're gonna build this shit back up from the ground up. And like it's just starting now, so like we'll see how it goes. And I think there's a lot of skepticism, deservedly. But even to people I've talked to in like other games and other areas of like look at Overwatch sort of favorably at the moment. It's like it has a good potential, and I think it would be a massive mistake to not at least give it a shot at trying to be a competitive FPS again. Because like what do you have right now? You have Apex, which outside of its competitiveness, like its competitive scene, is dog shit most of the time. I don't know about this season. I know they made a bunch of big changes this season. I haven't kept up. But prior to this season, most people thought Apex was pretty dog shit outside of its competitive scene. And when the competitive scene wasn't playing, nobody wanted to play, nobody wanted to watch. Valorant is starting to go down that route as well, where their competitive scene is what people are looking forward to. And when it's not playing, they drop quite a bit. Fortnite, I'd say, is an exception, where it used to have a very, very good competitive scene, and then it kind of fell off a bunch. But they've made a lot of changes back to the game and like made it more casual friendly again. But again, like its competitive scene is starting to have a little bit of a renaissance. Like it's not crazy yet. It's not like old Fortnite, don't get me wrong. But like they're trying to make it like two separate things. Like they have the free mode, like the no build, which is for casuals. And then they have build, which is like they're competitive, right? And so they've built a game where they can have both. We can't pick one. We have to pick one. Like they can have both. They have the money. Like that's just, like they're the rich kid on the block. They get to have everything. We don't. And I think it would be a mistake not to just keep fucking rolling and going down that competitive route. Because like that's the decision they've made. And if they want to go all in one last time, go for it. Because Overwatch can always be a casual game that you just turn on, run around the map on Winston, and make funny noises. You know what I mean? But
open queue exists. We have it now.
Yeah,
but it's not balanced. And also, when you ever
they didn't balance abilities, it just lowered.
Was it ever?
Yeah.
Okay,
This one's even more like a. You have your main dish and then you have your fries on the side.
Yeah, anytime you relegate a mode to the side, it's never going to be taken seriously. I'll just respond to what Flat said because I think it's a fair point. And obviously, this is where your philosophical desires for what the game could or should be is going to be the thing. I think you're right that they're changing, but I also think they're still searching. I don't think they've necessarily found, because with the quick play hack, they also experimented with what if the game was quicker, because I think that's an eye to like. They see the gap. I think they're looking for the gap in the market, right? They're like, where will we slot in to like actually be the game that everyone wants to play? And what they realize is like Overwatch is quick. It's faster than the other games. Right? It's faster than, in theory, it's faster than an Apex game if you go all the way. It's faster than a Valorant game for sure by a mile. It's faster than like a Dota game or whatever other MOBA game. It's way faster. So I think they're searching, and I personally don't believe in the competitive as the avenue. Like I don't. And Freedo will be like, "Don't plant your flag, SVB." I don't think the competitive will ever be the thing that Overwatch is like a hit for. The only thing it can be a hit for is the fun little game that it was at the start, where it was like not super serious, but just about fun heroes and exciting, cool people with like amazing backstories.
There's a lot of ways to apply yourself as a character. I think is a good way to put it.
And like just to round my point, then I want to hear Sam, because Sam, you haven't spoken in a while. I was just browsing, I think it was Reddit today, and it was like the list of Game of the Year winners. Sam, you used to love bringing this up. It was like the list
of interesting
Game of the Year winners for like the last 10 years or something. And it was like, started with like Dragon Age Inquisition. It was like Last of Us, Uncharted, Overwatch, God of War, Sekiro, and like all these like Zelda games. And the question was like, which of these is the worst or something like that? And all the comments were like, what the fuck is Overwatch doing in here? Like, this is a fucking trash game. And then people underneath that would be like, hold up, wait a minute. You guys are forgetting that on launch, Overwatch was an incredible game, revolutionary game, changed the entire FPS scene. It was so much fun. It was great when you could like walk around and do whatever. And then they were like, but then Activision sucks, blah, 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 blah. Activision, corrupt, greedy, money, whatever, right? That is the only way we ever come back to the glory, if we can even ever do it, is if we tap into that sentiment of like, I remember when I played 2016 Overwatch and it was just fun and free. And we may never get there. It's an impossible dream. But I personally don't think we'll ever get there being like the competitive game for the top 1% of the FPS like genre. I don't think we'll ever get there.
2016 Overwatch was still very competitive though. Like I would argue that most people who knew about Overwatch knew about its competitive scene more than anything. Like that was what they followed. They followed the 6 stacks of like your NRGs and Seagull or like, you know, like the whole the memes of like, you know, they went to Korea, you know what I mean? Like that's the iconic shit that people know about. They don't know about running around the map on Symmetra and putting down turrets. They remember the big moments. And I would even look at this season's a good example where this season isn't the best season of Overwatch. It's way better than every season in the past, and there's a lot to improve upon. But even this rank system, right? They changed the rank system, the way it works. There are so many players, and streamers especially, and like, unfortunately, that's the best data I have at the moment, is players and streamers, because I don't have player numbers. I don't have player data. I've seen way more people playing this season than they've played in any other season. You have tons of people just like me that were always the 50-game Andes. I'd win my 50 games, and I'd piece the fuck out, and that was it. But now I have a reason and I want to play, because you want to improve, you want to grind, you want to learn the new system, you want to climb the ranks. That has not happened any season before this. You just played your couple games and you pieced out. There was no care, there was no passion. And like we've talked about this in the past with many other things, it's like the worst thing when a game is in the shitter is not just when people are shitting on it, but when people don't give a fuck. Once it's apathy, it's GG. And I would argue that this is probably one of the first seasons where people actually give a fuck about rank, and they give it, like, I can't tell you how many little like drop fuckers come in my chat, because God, they drive me insane. Like the drop fuckers, and they're like rank question mark rank. They care more than ever, and it's like that hasn't happened with any season up until this point. And it's like, yes, up until now, Overwatch's competitive scene has been in the shitter, but also the point people forget is like Overwatch League killed it. Overwatch League was fucking terrible for this game. Like, the people running it, not saying like the people working there, the players, coaches, you know, staff, those were all nice people. I worked in Overwatch League. I met a lot of those upper level people. They were fucking stupid. That's legitimately the answer. They were stupid as fuck. And they isolated their player base from their pros. Like, every online community turned against pros. They were like, why are we balancing the game for pros? We don't even like them anyways. Blah, blah. That was not true up until 2018. Like, if fucking Seagull came out and said, I think we should change this, that was fucking law. Like, it was like, yep, well, that's what we're doing now. And it's like, that didn't happen until they were isolated. And hell, even as a streamer now, on the opposite end, I can sit there and go, I didn't care about Overwatch League, and I didn't like Overwatch League because Overwatch League didn't like me. Not personally, just saying like a streamer, because they didn't want us. They wanted all the numbers to themselves. They wanted to hoard everything in. And then once they were dying, they're like, oh, now we want to do co-streaming. But only on YouTube. You can't have your channel monetized, and actually we're going to DMCA strike you. We have to manually turn it off. And it's like, what? I don't want to fucking deal with your ass. Like, fuck you. And like, there was teams that try to do well, and they try to sign creators. And like, I was with Mayhem, and like, I always speak very well, highly of Mayhem's. Like, they were awesome. And it's like and like teams like them in Shock did their best. They did the best that they could, but they were bleeding millions of dollars, like bleeding. And there was no help because Activision Blizzard, it was just fucking raking it in every year off of those buy-ins, and they were just drowning him. Like they killed it. The reason why competitive scene in Overwatch is dead is because of Overwatch League. Not because of the production, not because of the way the show was done, but it went to YouTube to chase money. We had the best system on Twitch for any esports viewing experience with the pass. There was all these great things we had, and they're all dead. And the reason why we look to casual now is because it's like, well, it's successful. I think that the reason we could have been successful as an esport too, but we fucked it up. And if they're really willing to sit there and try again, why not give it another shot? Because I'd argue right now is the weakest esports been in the last 5 years. Everybody's down bad, and with everybody down bad is the best time to grow. That's when I grew my stream in 2020 when Overwatch was dying, and that was when I became a streamer, when nobody else wanted to play this fucking game. It's the best time to make an impact, and we have a shot to do it. I hope we don't give it up.
Yeah, so I'll just respond. I know I said this last well. This is the last response, and I'm gonna let Sam go because again, Sam's been very patiently. I think I agree with a lot of your points, and I also think that like for any game to be popping, many of these elements have to be popping, right? Like there's no way that any one singular thing will be the thing. Like it won't be that the competitive is the thing or the casual is the thing. When a thing is you know popular, all of its elements are popular, and I think that's where it comes down to. Like I don't view competitive as like not ranked. Like ranked is still like in my view would be fine in the casual thing, but when I say competitive, I mean like Overwatch League, the top 1%. And I think there is a danger of like conflating memory, like collective memories, with like the player experience. Like of course you're right, like all the things we remember are those like they took them to Korea and all these things, but like of course I'm not gonna remember what Joe Blogs did on Symmetra, but they're gonna remember that with their friends. Like, oh, you remember when we were in a 3-stack and you played Hanzo and I played Symmetra and we did this dumb shit. So like of course our memories are gonna be to these shared moments that we had watching these top streamers and these top players who were also at early Overwatch, of course, the pro players, right? Like the streamers then were the pro players. So of course all the attention went there. Like now you and Emong and J3 and ML, like you're not gonna go pro. Like no, I don't think so. Yeah, no, you'll play in the OWCS, but if they were like, come play Overwatch 8 hours a day and scrim and VOD, you guys aren't gonna do that. You're fucking gonna have way better. You're gonna have a way better time just streaming. So of course your fun will remain in just playing Overwatch and playing with your friends and stacking like the normal average player. They're not gonna try and compete to become the best Overwatch player in the world, and I don't think anyone really will. And even if we look at other games like League of Legends, like of course League of Legends' World Championship is very popular amongst its players, but that's because the game is very popular. And of course when you enjoy the game, eventually you want to see the World Championship. Who doesn't, right? Who doesn't want to see the World Championship of the game they love? But they're not going to come and fall like, and everyone watched the World Cup in Overwatch because even if it was in quote unquote a casual state, it's great fun. Like it's just amazing. I just don't think it'll be the primary motivator for people to log on and like keep an interest in Overwatch. I don't think they'll come for the esport and stay. That's my personal opinion. I don't think there's a definitive answer either way, and hard for me to say, especially because I don't know the stats of like what's going on. But I think they'll come for the game and follow the esports. I don't think they'll come for the esports and stay for the game if the game isn't like fundamentally for them. That's
Right.
my POV.
Before Sam, I want to let you go, Sam. I promise. Really quick, I know this in Apex because Apex is fucking dog shit outside of its esport. But anytime you watch high level, insane Apex tournaments, it makes you want to get on and play the game. And
I'm
you
sure.
have not the same experience, but a similar, at least gameplay experience wise. You know, running through the zone, you know, looking for mats, stuff like that. Yeah, it's not 1-to-1, but like it does a lot. It really, really, really does. And I think if we look at the most popular FPS games that are right now still thriving, they're all very competitive. We're the only one that's not.
Sam, go ahead.
What a damn good show today, fellas. This is why this is the best podcast in Overwatch. I'll say it. I don't care. I don't care. Man, I love you guys. Here's what I have to ask you. One, why not both? Why do these things have to be mutually exclusive? Right? We can do both, right? Because here's the thing. I've said this for years about Overwatch. It's about the journey, right? You can capture that casual fun experience as it be, and I think you were on the money about 5v5 open queue, because when I trace back all these issues for Freedo, you and I butt heads, and I butt heads with a lot of other people talking about it. Damn it, I hear Nateson in my ear. Open queue, open queue, open queue. Because if this is the end result of roll queue with these queue times, and it's unsolvable and it's too hard to balance, because you want roll queue and queue times to be good, you have to make each roll equally appealing, and that's really damn hard to do, right? To give the Team 4 credit. It's damn hard to do that. I think I didn't release the video, but SFV, my solution was 5v5 open queue. I would love to, I'd actually prefer to see that tried maybe before a quick play hack 6v6 roll queue. But I don't want to go down too much on that road. I just wanted to quickly note on that because we put that one behind us and we're going to move on to the competitive scene. I think both are doable, guys. I think how you get somebody interested in a competitive scene, and this is what Overwatch did so well when it first came out, because there wasn't any gimmicky Moira heroes that Freedo was yelling about. There wasn't any of that gimmick stuff. The skill floor was super low, but the ceiling was so high. And what did that do? That made your average player who wanted to play Genji go watch Seagull. That made guys like me who were learning Hanzo say, oh, damn, Seagull's the best Hanzo. I want to go watch him. Seagull's who I watched when I first came to Overwatch in like season 1, started my stream. My hero pool was Genji Hanzo. So I was like, all right, God damn it, I watched the Dragons trailer, and that's what did it. Still to this day, I think the second best gameplay trailer I've ever seen. Yeah, the second best one I've ever seen behind the Skyrim trailer, which, God forbid, if somebody ever beats the Skyrim trailer, the world's going to end, gentlemen. Pigs are going to be flying, hell's freezing over, and I'll be down there ready to take on hell with a squirt gun because, you know, you best believe that I will be there. You can do both. right? But it comes down to like how heroes are made. This is why Lifeweaver shouldn't exist, right? No offense to Lifeweaver, I like playing him, but heroes like that, it shouldn't happen. I dare say, I'm sorry, Moira players, heroes like Moira shouldn't exist either, right? Because original Overwatch, what made it great is that floor was low, but the ceiling was so damn high. And this is where I always said Kaplan and Goodman's model was wrong. You don't make a complicated game and make it easier over time. You keep it complicated, but you keep the floor low and the ceiling high so that journey, players feel like there's always more they can do. They feel like it's in their control. It's not the game cheesing them. There's always something they can do with their player agency to go out and learn. And what that creates is a game that's casual friendly because there's always more journey to progress on. And then it makes a competitive scene that's actually compelling for people to get into because they want to see what the best players are doing. And that's how you get somebody from a grassroots perspective. Flats, you were right about Overwatch League. It was a bad idea. It was a bad idea made by people who weren't in the trenches. And it had nothing to do with the people. I worked with Mayhem too. We did our damn hardest to build that thing up. I was the first person really working on the Mayhem channel back then. It was me and Nate. I got Nate and Jay their jobs. I talked to Ella and I said, I got somebody for you. Got Nate hired. Then I messaged Jay because he tweeted out he's looking for an org. And I said, you have a meeting with the president in 30 minutes. Get on. And he did. I'll give him credit. He got on. That's what made Overwatch special, man. And I hate the idea that we feel like we have to choose between one or the other. We don't, right? We can do both. And Fortnite does it so damn well, man. They're not just a game anymore, guys. They're a game development platform, right? They have the no build. They have their classic modes, right? They do encycle a lot of these things, SVB. And that's why I actually don't think it's a problem that we go around and try a lot of these things. I think it's a brilliant marketing strategy. It works. It freaking works. Fortnite has killed it. Year over year in players, they were at 86 million monthly active users last year. They were at 127 this year, a 30% year over year. Minecraft, who was stagnant, and I know it because I've been researching this space for a year now again. They were at 170 million and 172 this year, while Roblox is up to 380 because they can do anything. And Overwatch shouldn't box itself into one or the other because there's still, to this day, despite everything that we all say, right? There has not been a game. Everybody said it was going to be Valorant. We said, no, it won't be. Valorant will be a good game, but it's too different. There has not been a game that has come out like Overwatch. And the way you can express yourself with different styles of play on these characters that are the identity of the game, they shouldn't be locked. You should be able to access everything, right? That's what made the game fun and beautiful. And it still has that, right? I don't think we have to choose. And I would say that I agree, Flats. The competitive scene should get its shot because that's what makes people want to get on and grind every day. This new rank system, Gavin cooked with it. It's great. It needs some tweaks still, but this one has the potential to be better than the first one. It does, right? This is the first time where I've been able to look at Overwatch 2 and be like, that's an upgrade. It is.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And it makes people want to play. Even the stacking coming back. Even though I had to play Moxie and Craggy's 8 games in a row, expected to lose all 8 games, and God damn it, I did, right? And I was about to bash my desk in half. I looked in the mirror, and people were like, see, this, you got what she asked for, you wanted stacking. And I said, you know what? I'd take this any goddamn day of the week. Because you want to know why? I queued up again after. And I'm ready to go the next day, ready to win, right? And that's what makes it fun. So, I think the game's on a good path to set that up right now. And I don't think that they should. I think we can do both. And SVB, I'd love to see how an open queue could work because this might be my hotter take than Brig, hotter take than 6v6. If you really take a step back and look at it and ask yourself the question, have we ever been able to get around the biggest fear of roll queue being the queue times? And I was one of roll queue's biggest advocates. That answer might be no, right? That answer might be no. And so I would love to see all this tried. I know I went all over the place, but I hadn't got to speak it a little bit, but I'm trying to wrap a little bit of a bow on that. But don't box ourselves in, guys. What made Overwatch so innovative and loved when it first came out, it was the first game to go outside of that box. It did loot boxes fairly. Hero skill expression was beautiful. The trailers were beautiful. The characters and the actual engine itself going for big combos together. That was fun. We know that's what makes the game beautiful. Let's not water it down. Let's expand on everything that made it great. And that's my opinion. So here we go.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I agree with it. Freedo.
What do I want to say here? I don't think I want to debate this anymore. I think. All right, this is what I want to say. Sam just walked away, and this was supposed to be directed directly to him. I don't know if you still have his headset on. I want to apologize to my friend Sam because I think my emotions got the better of me in this show because I have latent frustration with our entire community at this point, where it seems every content okay, keep in mind, I was here since 2016, right? So I feel like I'm more entrenched than a lot of you who remember Overwatch as like a thing that was happening outside of your day-to-day existence, and everyone kind of jumped in at a certain point and has different relationships with the on the ground reality of what the conversations were back then. So when we nostalgize that time back then, I'm sitting here like, wait a second, everyone said the opposite at the time, and now we're flip-flopping again. And back then we had an overwhelming majority casual player base. We had MMO players coming to try Overwatch. It was a very different experience. It was a new Blizzard game, not a shooter game competing with CS:GO. Valorant didn't exist back then, but that's not the game we had, right? It was exactly the thing SVB was talking about, where the gameplay was expressive. First of all, wasn't even close to balanced. Oh my god, like we had a defensive hero category and all of them were terrible. Like some heroes had skill expression and other heroes were gimmicks that maybe you could try to annoy your teammates by picking. The gap between the performance of heroes was insane. And this is partially where I come from, of like, do you really want balance? Because balance means counterpicking. Balance means everything has a place to compete. You can't have both. We got to be careful with these mutually exclusive ideas. Sam, did you have your headset on the whole time or no? You didn't?
Dude, I had to pee so bad. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to apologize to you because I'm getting frustrated with everyone being so certain about the effects of their beliefs. You, of course, are perhaps the least offensive to me out of the entire community, but it seems like every comment I see on YouTube is a guy who's been playing the game X amount of years and thinks they can explain it better than you can. Our whole community now is experts.
YouTube comments.
Yeah, YouTube or TikTok.
Yes,
all good, brother. By the way, I love the discourse. You know, I love the discourse. So this is why this podcast is the Mount Rushmore podcast. You're sorry to cut you off, but you're all good. Keep going.
Yes, and to piggyback on your point, not just in our community, I think I haven't seen a podcast this good in any game community. I followed a lot, right? Like us, the Avenger Squad here. I'll put us up against pick any other game, okay? We run circles around them. Anyway, where was I going with this?
You remember
we flip-flopped on every single point. We flip-flopped on every single thing. Like they designed the game to be that exact casual, friendly experience from the start. The game wasn't balanced, wasn't very competitive, and our dev team was not supportive of competitive in any way. Meanwhile, Bobby Kotick wanted the Overwatch League. So there was two competing forces there where they're trying to make Brig a casual character that you can just in your casual games anti-tracer. That's what they wanted it to do. Okay, they wanted a character that did that and then spawned this competitive comp. They didn't even want to coexist. Right now I kind of agree with Flats. I think that we're down the competitive route. However, I think in a lot of these cases, I feel like I can just sit here and nitpick like, oh, this wasn't the case. That wasn't the case. Like, for example, I don't want to over nostalgize that early competitive period because I'm pretty sure I could be correct on this. Maybe someone in any of our chats remembers exactly, but I think those early tournaments maybe had like 30 to 50,000 views, which seemed like a lot at the time.
Very
right?
different
like,
Twitch though.
Right. Yes. The entire ecosystem of gaming is entirely different now. Yeah. And so we need a game that's going to work now. That game 2016, like the player base we had was every single kind of gamer ever wanting to come try the new Blizzard game. And they almost accidentally made one of the most competitive games ever. Like they came from the genesis of WoW devs trying to make a TF2 version with Blizzard Code of Paint, basically. Like, what if we make it as magical as Blizzard games, but from that standpoint, with the developers that made, one of the most successful games of all time, essentially. And so we always had a tension point. And I guess me personally, having to have been debating these things for so long with that dev team and have members of that dev team insult me to my face, essentially, that all my ideas are dumb, and now they're doing a lot of the things that I wanted them to do, like, oh, I can play with my friends, they care about competitive now, like they're balancing the game more frequently, they a lot of the things that I want them to do, they're doing. And so, I'm less harsh on this new team because I think they're on the right track. So I don't know. That's like a generalized point. I'm kind of I'm kind of fatigued with us here. I think in general, I pray to the Overwatch community, content creators, viewers, everything. Let's just try to have a little bit more humility in the things that we say, because now everybody has watched all of our content creators make these broad statements of like the game works like this. Oh wait, no, they changed it. Now it works entirely differently. It's like, oh, like I'm sitting here watching all of you do this, not in this call, but everyone does this, right? They say it's got to work this way, and then it doesn't happen. And this game is too complicated for that. You can't encapsulate it in simple arguments. There's no one size fits all solution to anything. There's always trade-offs. And for me, I think this is the least bad version. So like let's say about capitalism, okay? Like capitalism is the least bad form of doing this. It's terrible. It's horrible. It just ruins everything in life. But we can't figure out a way to do it better. That's how I feel about Overwatch 2 and 5v5 in general.
Yeah, well said. But all that being said, Moira will never be a good part of this game. No,
I'll back it up on that one. Just
Yeah.
careful the K-pop mentions though. Just don't mention K-pop.
Anytime you mention K-pop on this podcast, Sam, it just like it spawns a whole nother thing. It
Hey,
spawns
Flap, want to turn off your webcam and move my name a little bit?
and then just drop some hot takes. Everybody send your hate to Flats Overwatch. Oh shit! Now Flats, you're Freedo now.
Oh, I'm Freedo. Oh, this is my golden chance to try.
6v6 is better. No,
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh,
no, let's.
man.
So I think it's a great. And again, I also really love you guys and appreciate you being here and the awesome opinions you give me and just pure love for who you are as people and human beings. Is there anything else you want to add? We've all given a lot of opinions. Anything else you want to add just as a last conclusion? I don't want to start a whole new spiral, but any things that you release, unexpressed thoughts before we move on?
These pistachios are hidden.
Pistachios hidden. All right, Flats, you good?
Where are we moving on to is the question.
So we never actually discussed the DPS thing. We kind of like we discussed.
We got the tank. I was gonna say that at the start. I was like, do we want to do DPS first? Because this tank one's gonna go on for a while. Oh man.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. We discussed supports, we discussed tanks, but we started off by saying this is the DPS patch, and then we never discussed DPS. So before I'm conscious I don't want to take too much of you guys' time, and if any of you have to go, let me know. But if we have the time, let's actually talk about the state of DPS, because this is the first time DPS has been quote unquote the best role in a while for Overwatch. So yeah, Sam, you go first. You got to talk about as the resident DPS.
Oh man, so I underrated a couple characters. I thought Echo would be worse than she was. A lot of the hit scan hitboxes are, I think a lot of like Tracer, I think is just insane, man. Tracer is crazy. Playing against Widow is super irritating. But I will say in general, like, it does feel nice being able to contribute as DPS. There's definitely a lot of sleeper picks. I think Torbjorn is a crazy hero. I put him in S tier and people called me crazy. No, he is insanely good. You just have to learn where to put your turret and then frontline for your turret. And it's that simple. I have a Torb guide coming out, which I'm excited to post here soon. But no, this is kind of like, it doesn't have the same depth that like OG DPS did, like way back in the day, right? But you definitely notice the impact, right? Like my decision making is still a little on the one-dimensional side, but like the setups, the working together as a team, right? That definitely has helped a lot. Like the power, like you can feel the power of DPS heroes now, and you couldn't really feel it at all. I'd say post DPS passive originally getting changed, and a part of that probably is because DPS just didn't have a passive for the last 8 seasons. That's really what. After they took away the movement speed, dude, that passive was useless. Like Hanzo didn't even have it, right? But now, like it's definitely noticeable. Like I think the hard part with these passives FCB, and I'm still not sold on them existing altogether at all, to be frank with you. And I feel like our takes on here about them previously have just been proven to be more and more true now, is that they do not affect every character evenly, right? Which makes like making a lot of characters have viability at once incredibly difficult to do, if borderline impossible, right? Like Tracer's insane, Echo's really, really good. People are still picking Cassidy outside of anything besides Lucio, Moira, Queen comps, and I'm like, guys, don't do that. There was the trend that Soldier was really, really good. I think Soldier's really good in ranked. But when they pick ball dive, like you just cannot play soldier because he's in almost a worse Cassidy because he just gets knocked up in the air and just hit like just smacked all over the map, right? I will say though, like I told all my friends this, like it's definitely worth coming back and playing as a DPS player. A lot of DPS players kind of walked away from the game because you didn't feel like you were able to contribute, and it just like there is nothing more irritating in the world. No Flats gets this because he's a tank player. Than making a play and just watching it just be absolutely worthless, like you're running into a brick wall. And that was done via healing, immortalities, you name it, things that you couldn't interact with that were just overriding all of your journey. Like I spent 6 or 7 years, playing this game as a DPS player and mastering the game. Like I'm top 50 every season. And I just was running into brick walls and it freaking pissed me off. But now that Echo game, when you set up the good dive with Beaver Fever going pow driving, right? When you set up your dive with the Winston player, right? Or your Lucio, like the setups and all that stuff. And really dive is peak Overwatch. I'll say it. A lot of people are going to be upset about that. Dive is peak Overwatch, and Torb is still really good. You can run the anti-dive comps, but you need a brain. And it's so nice to see my very, very in-depth thought process for everything that I do in the game. Every single action that I make has a purpose: to split players, to focus this target, to force this cooldown, and then immediately target swap here and here and here. I'm like a turret in Bloons tower defense. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like whatever the high level ones are. I know Flats plays that game, but it's nice. It's nice. Now, May is useless. Rip my girl May. People for some reason are still playing Genji, right? And I think like it'd be nice to see a lot of these heroes kind of get tuned and changed. And I'd like to see some of the big ult combos come back for DPS that just the one thing I'll say, and I'm not going to go to 6v655 with this. It's like, I feel like now, like my big games on DPS aren't as big. I can't quite put my finger on it, but they're still fun. And it's just nice. It's nice, rewarding. Like being rewarded for my role. But I have to be careful because I always try to pride myself on being fair to all 3 roles. It is too good. It should get tuned back. I don't even touch support right now because I want to play Ana, and I know I'm going to be tempted to pick Ana, and I know I just can't. Frustrates me because I love her. But yeah, no, it's nice, man. I don't touch Hanzo anymore, but I play a little bit more hit scan. I've been playing a lot of Ashe, who I think is criminally underrated right now. But it's felt good. Now, is it fair? No, but it's felt good. Finally, I get to reap the rewards that all the support players have gotten for years, and I don't have to roll swap. So that is nice.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was a very fair and balanced approach to it, and I like the decision you made earlier of like 15%, maybe 1.5 seconds feels a bit more tuned. Like, let's try that and see how it goes. It's interesting actually because if you remember back before they released Overwatch 2, they actually attempted this mechanic, and we all said it was kind of shit. When they were like, every time you take damage, your healing goes down massively. I think it was like in one of the early previews that they did with pros, like the first time they showed 5v5, I think they said that like in combat healing is way lower. But of course, this is one of the funny things of like an idea that's bad at one point in time for Overwatch can become good later. And this is like back when everyone was like supports are shit. And everyone was like, there's no good supports, like supporting feels bad.
They were wrong about that, by the way. And Freedo and I said that. Brig was good, all this stuff was good. They all were just bad. I'll say it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
But it's interesting that back then, people were like, no, this we never even got to try it, actually. This was just off of the suggestion that they gave, and we were like, no, don't do it. And then they were like, no, okay, we won't do it. And now they brought it back, but just as a DPS passive, and maybe that's an elegant solution, although maybe everyone could also have it. That's also a thing. Who knows? Freedo, I'll take it to you first. How do you feel about the DPS role and what Sam just said? And you feel free to hate on Torb the way you did on Moira.
Yeah, I have problems with Torb. All right. I have the hot take that I maybe should have put at the start of the show, but I'm going to agree with something I heard Craggy say on stream, that tank is the strongest role, potentially, especially for the amount of mechanics that are required, because they sculpt the engagement and interrupt the enemy's DPS passive. Tank with synergy with your DPS is overwhelmingly good, and playing DPS without synergy with your tank still feels pretty bad in a lot of ways, because for me anyway, someone who isn't as good as Sam. And I watch Sam stream sometimes, and like he'll miss one of his stickies on Echo, and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm terrible! Oh my goodness!" It's like, Sam, I can't hit half of my sticky volleys. Like, what are you talking about? So even though the hitboxes are bigger and more forgiving, you have to be more consistent now. So I personally find I'm worse at damage than I was before because, well, I mean, they robbed me of Junkrat, so there's one big hero out of my pool. It was maybe my best hero, right? Out of damage, and then all the other DPS that are kind of like flanky and bursty. You know, Sombra's a lot harder to play. I think you get more. Just gotta be more. You just gotta be better, basically. So I struggle as damage now. I am thankful for the Widowmaker players on my team now at my rank that actually can hit shots and aren't a liability. So I think after I grind tank a lot longer now, because I'm trying to make a bigger video with my stream experiences playing tank and kind of learning and holding myself accountable, I feel tank has the most power for the like less mechanics. Basically, that's an argument we don't really have often on this show. I feel like you still have to have very good mechanics to play damage, even though it's a bit easier. You have to be more consistent. So yeah, you can play Ashe, you can play Widow, but it's tuned in a way where it's still like challenging. My buddy Nate, I think, as we play with him on stream sometimes, like he's still kind of figuring it out as well, and he's a good damage player, right? Like has been around in GM as well in a lot of his picks, and like I don't know if he's so comfortable on it either. So I don't feel like I'm the only one. I think it's more about team shooting, which perhaps like Sam is one of. I mean, if he's got a lot of strengths as a player, I've watched Sam play the game a lot, but his teamwork skill and bringing that contender's knowledge is like so big. And I don't know, damage is harder. I think it was a myth essentially that like it's easier. I don't actually believe that. I think hitting shots is in a way like a bit more difficult, which is why we have like the Moira problem anyway, because things have more health and you have to be even better to punish that in some cases. And I hope the game keeps pushing towards these skill shot picks more so. I maintain I don't want a balanced game necessarily. I don't want every hero to be equally viable. I would rather the skill expression heroes to be top of the meta, and so I'll keep saying that until the end of time. Some of them, though, I think are having an outmoded hitbox issue. Like Torb is utterly ridiculous against tanks, and I don't think that should be the case. He's oddly like, and I'm curious if Sam agrees with me on this, but like he used to really zone out flankers, but now because they can take an extra hit, it's sort of not doing that as much. Whereas the DPS passive applying, I think from the turret, I'm pretty sure it does, onto any dive tank, it always hits me. So it's like I go anywhere, I'm in front, I'm the tank. Haha, look at me. I can dodge everything else. I can even dodge the Torb shot, but the turret hits me, and now I have the DPS passive on me. And not only does that screw me, then on top of that, the shotgun damage is like overwhelming. And it's heroes like this that makes like the counter picking issue for tank even more punishing. I really liked the way Flats described it, because on one hand, I like the complexity because we have to think about playing around our damage more. But it also means the counter picking potential is even stronger in a way. Because it used to be only supports mattered. So I didn't care what my DPS were doing in old patches. It was like, you're kind of a useless role anyway. Go off on a wacky flank. Who cares? Sometimes you kill, sometimes you don't. It's like, whatever. I'm going to hold my own with my OP characters, the supports behind me. Now supports are weaker, and you have to get use out of your damage. And so the complexity of the game is going up, and the tank gets more responsibility from that. I guess because I play tank, everything's going to be related to that experience overall. I look forward to trying to get better at damage, but I just objectively am worse in this version of the game, and maybe that's just my personal opinion, but yeah, it seems harder. Like, and like when I watch Nate play as well, like he was a dominant tracer player, and he feels like he kind of just peeks around and gets domed by stuff than before. Like I've seen a lot of people have this opinion. Like I agree, Tracer seems outrageous, but at the same time, there's a learning curve to this. Like you easily get hit in ways that you didn't before. So I don't know what I should be doing in some of these cases. We have to like relearn the role, it seems.
Can I add on to that briefly?
Yeah, go ahead.
The players, it's been very funny watching the DPS players who have been able to get away positioning horribly for a very long time, and even tank players too, try to like 'cause from my brain, like what you had to learn was like the second that you see someone out of position, like the Moira is the extreme example of that, where she's using her fade and you can see like, okay, that player misplayed. Like, how are they allowed to get away with that, right? It's been very funny to see those mistakes happen and have them actually be punishable, like OG Overwatch. And then as a lot of our colleagues have had that happen to them too, and it's been hilarious. It's been really funny watching that happen and seeing like good players like actually make the proper decision and get the punishment, and then what players who get away with bloody murder because their hero is OP or there's a bailout get punished for it. That's been nice. It's discipline, I think, is what it is. But when you learn the discipline, it's really good.
Well, one last thing I'll add before we move off me here. I think like I like my DPS players having a useful ability that I feel I can capitalize as a tank player. It's like, you know, the SVB stream watchers will remember the most epic Numbani game of all time, where I went, I think, okay, with the last overtime, okay, we're going into that. I'm looking at the scoreboard. I think I was 55-4 as Winston. And they go Torb, and I just tilts off the side of the planet, 2 minutes to get a tick or something, and I just can't get in without feeding, and we lose. Now, my experience before that was like the enemy playing characters I could dive and outplaying them utterly, like just wiping the floor with them, feeling invincible. My primals are popping off. I'm getting away from the Moira. I'm telling my Tracer, okay, Tracer, go in. Do 1 damage for me. Can you give me 1 damage? Pick a thing and ping it, and I'll jump on it. We'll kill it. Like, that feels amazing. I haven't felt like I had any teamwork power out of that role this whole time playing Overwatch 2. And that was big in Overwatch 1, where it was more about like making space and positioning. So I like the DPS passive for the whole game. I get a little nervous when we're talking about nerfing it. Like, I'm not sure what that's going to do. Like, I guess I'll always be the grass isn't always greener guy on the show. Like there's other things I want to address first before we worry about that. I think allowing pressure to force the engagement to resolve is a good idea. That's like the base point of what the damage passive is supposed to do. It's a little interesting. Like, should everyone get that? Should that just be the case? Like, strange. I'm not sure that's going to necessarily work. Otherwise, like, Winston cleaving you would just be like the greatest thing of all time. Like, I'm curious how they navigate this. I think that we can move the game into a positive direction with this principle of like both squishy roles have something they're going to aid you with. I think we just have to get it to a more reasonable state where certain heroes aren't getting utterly outmoded from others. Like the balance, I don't know. I don't know. I fear that we're going to ask for something and we dislike the next thing even worse than what we have. Like, the game moves now, right? Coordination matters. And it used to be the tank kind of AFK'd. Now you AFK and then hardened. at least there's the hardened part, I think, is the benefit. Unless they're playing Torbjorn, then you auto die.
Yeah, I mean, lots of interesting thoughts there, and I think a good to flag up, like, well, will it be better with the DPS passive worse, or is it good with the way it is now? But obviously, I want to ask Flat's opinion on the sort of the quote unquote hot take there of like, actually tank is the strongest role and DPS isn't. So go ahead, Flats. Give me your thoughts on the DPS role.
I don't think I could disagree anymore with like literally everything that was said. I think it's kind of an insane thing to say that tank has the most impact while sitting there, and then also saying in the same breath that you're sitting there waiting for DPS follow-up or DPS to do certain things. And instead also say like, yeah, those games we have 54-4, dude, that's not my rank. My rank, you wouldn't get to 54. You would have got one team fight and they would have swapped up, because like they're letting you get 54-4. They just sat there AFK. Like those players were fucking terrible. Like, I don't know what else to say there. Like, they didn't play the counter swap game clearly till overtime, and then, you know, at that point it's like, okay, well, I want to continue playing my Winston, so I'm gonna just go in and I just get tilted and die. It's like, yeah, that's every fucking fight. Like, it's, if you win a fight, their entire team comp is swapped already. So like, that's just not like it. And like, to go on to it, it's like those are just players that didn't play well, and you had a fun game because they didn't play well and you got to dominate. Everybody likes to dominate and pop off, but like, that's not the average game in any way, shape, or form. And again, like, going back to like the whole quarterback thing, like you are kind of supposed to be the star player, and you have the weakest outcome. It's the same thing as like your entire team is like, it doesn't matter if your quarterback's insane, if he has no one to throw to, has no line, has nothing to do, like, if they can't catch the ball, they drop it every time you throw anything. it doesn't matter how good your quarterback is, you're going to lose every game. Like, yeah, everyone can sit there and go, yeah, your quarterback's insanely good. Like, he hits their targets, they just drop the ball every time. It doesn't feel any better to be that guy, though, who's making the throw. It feels fucking terrible. Like, every single time you're either getting pressured, someone's dropping the ball, you can't even hold the handoff, they're fumbling. That's not a good experience at all. And to say like, oh yeah, it has high potential, it's like, yeah, of course it has high potential when you have like contenders level fucking comms and everyone's trying hard. But then we also look back at 6v6 and say, well, you know, you talk about synergy, but you didn't actually get it every game. Yeah, you don't get that shit every game either. You get people that want to play whatever they want, and they're gonna run around the map. And you know, DPS are gonna be popping off. You have like the Widow Tracer on one team, the other team's playing, I don't know, like fucking Cast Soldier, and like Cast Soldier's like not the worst, but like then you have fucking Cast Soldier and you have Kiri and Zen, and it's like, okay, we're playing extreme poke, but we're on Dorado, so I can't really play poke here, but like I'll give it a shot. So you gotta either like slot in with some Sigma or slot in with some ball, and you don't have that synergy every game. So if you sit there and he's like, well, you know, it's great, and you have those pop-off moments again, but in my experience, you don't even get the int part. Like the int part is like, you have to like see the perfect opening, and it's not fair. Like it's genuinely not fair. The amount of skill that is required and pressure that is required on the tank role versus the other two roles is unbearable. It's not sustainable. Like nobody's want to play that, casual player or competitive player. It's ridiculous. Like I sat there and I watched Tens the other night. Tens came back to Overwatch to play a little bit after the new patch. He's playing Widow, and he's like, oh, like I heard they changed some hitbox stuff. What characters are good? And I'm sitting there and watching him play. He's been playing the match. I'm like, wow, he's pretty fucking good. Like he's hitting every shot. It's kind of nuts. But like his positioning's not great. Like he just kind of, you know, like he's playing on well, and there's a hog that's kind of fucking with him a little bit. But he hits every headshot on Cassidy. I'm like, damn, dude, he's kind of cooking. And I'm sitting there. I was in a call with Karq because, you know, he got back from stuff, and like I was trying to, like, you know, I was just catching up with him, hanging out, and I was like, damn, dude, this POV looks so peaceful. Like, man, I wish my games look like this. And he goes, my games do look like that. I go, we play all the time. We're like, we do. Like, what are you talking about? He goes, this looks like my POV. I go, doesn't look like my POV, not even a little bit. And he laughed, and he goes, well, it's because you play tank. My POV looks like I'm fighting in World War III. But if you look at any POV of like a DPS player or support player, unless they're playing in a top 20 lobby, it's pretty casual. It's pretty chill, you know? And I'm not playing in a top 20 lobby most of the time. I'm a little bit washed in that sense. But it's like fighting for my life, and I don't even feel like the skill expression really matters as much. You know what? My turn for a hot take for the day. I'd argue that I feel like I have less skill expression in tank in 5v5 than I did in 6v6. Specifically, even Rhine duels. You wanna know why I don't play Rhine that often anymore? Not only because the character's terrible, but I can fucking absolutely toast fucking Booger Eater 6435 on Rhine. Hit him with the big pin, hit him with a shatter. Guess what? It doesn't matter. Like, I have clips of me baiting out and waiting for the life grip. And they have a Kiri, so I gotta bait out the life grip, gonna bait out the Suzu, then I'm gonna hit the shatter, get a swing or two, then pin him off the map. And I went for pin him off the map, but the cooldown for the life weaver thing, it just went, plus it was a slide, there's a little bit of a slide on the geometry, so the guy got pulled back up and pinned me off the map. And it's like, I played that to the best of my ability. There's not much else to go there, unless like, you know, I waited maybe a couple extra seconds to see if I could get them even closer. Instead of going for the pin, maybe I could kill some of the backline. But they're playing so far back, there's no way I would get there anyways. And with the meta the way it is now, you can't really go out in aggressive. You're going to get punished. You don't get the healing. So it's like the amount of things that have to go your way is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. And to say it's like the hard carry roll, yeah, it feels like shit when you get rolled by some Giga tank. But you also probably could have made some swaps that would have won you the game. And I can't tell you how many times people will get rolled by a ball, and it's like, dude, their ball's fucking us. I'm like, well, I'm already on Diva, and I'm using my full DM on you. Their Tracer ball, and then they even have a good like Sojourn or Widow. You could go Sombra. You don't want to play Sombra. Oh, okay. You want to keep playing. Yeah, you want to go Torb. You want to keep playing Soldier. Oh, okay. Like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, and then you're gonna get mad at your tank player because you don't know what, like, you're like, their tank's dominating, you should do the same thing. Well, you could too, dumbass. Like, and it's so stupid. Like, it's not fair. It's genuinely not fair. And to say, like, look at this and say it's sustainable long term is inherently just insane. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like I think I've played like 400 or 500 games of tank ranked this season. Maybe it's like 4, I think. 500 is much. Maybe like 4. And it's like, that is not the experience every game. And like, as you go down the ranks, you're going to have a different experience, and you're going to have tanks that smoke you, and there's going to be times you get smoked, but there's also times you can play Reinhardt and win. That ain't my game. So the game is so different in top level, low level play right now because it's new, and it's like Overwatch 3.0. And just like with anything in any video game, it takes a long time for the top level play to migrate its way down. We didn't see GOATs and Silver till like a year in. And not like they knew how to play it, but like they didn't even try it, right? Like it took a very long time for that to happen. So even what we're seeing right this second, you're going to see it first happen at the top and then very slowly work its way down as people figure out how to make it work.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, I was going to take it to you anyway, so go ahead.
Okay, all right, cool.
We'll try and keep it brief though, because I know we've gone on for a while, so we'll try and keep.
Yeah, I'll do my best. I just a couple notes.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that teamwork is more important for sure. So Flats makes a ton of great points about having bad DPS picks on his team that don't fit the situation. That's certainly a lot more punishing. Like it's even more the case now. I've already kind of felt that personally. I've been saying that about DPS already. Having a bad comp certainly sucks, and the teamwork element is back in a big way thanks to this passive, because you need your DPS to interact with the game appropriately. However, and it's commonly the criticism of things that I say, that I'm not a good player and I play against trash cans. I'm not high enough ranked to have an opinion. But I'm quoting Craggy, who I think is pretty good. But he was kind of wiping the floor with a trash can that I know too. I mean, he was just dominating in a 3-stack against a washed up former contenders pro named Samito for about 8 games in a row. So yes, I am, not playing against people who are trying as hard and not picking good characters, and there's that issue. But at the same time, as I play and through my trials and tribulations learning the role, I feel like there's a lot of room for me to make better decisions, be on the right hero. It is super complicated and harsh, and you need the synergies, and you need your DPS to work together with you, and there's a lot of things that need to go right. Yes. But for the amount of mechanics that is required to play that role, I don't think it's outmoded for a shooter game to be that. And I think that's the reason why Craggy feels that way, if I can speak for him, that when he goes from playing Tracer to Diva, it's like, wow, it's like on Tracer, I'm just getting bopped by everything on the side. And as Diva, I can like hold a corner. Now, it might not be as fun. And I agree with a lot of things Flat said, like sustainability, fun factor, casual experience, getting blown up as tank. There's a lot there to work with. I think balance can help that as well. But I think where Craggy comes from with that is like, he's got to do so much as Tracer to dominate as one of his best picks, whereas Diva, he's just like a big Tracer who can deny damage and can work in synergy with his teamwork. But what do I know? I'm not a high ranked player, so I have to just quote them instead of be one. But yeah, I think that's basically it.
It's not high ranked yet. Never give up.
Never give
well,
up.
Yeah, I'll keep trying at this. I have been high ranked at easier versions of the game. I think I like the game now because I think it is harder. And every time they rebalance the game or change the format and my rank goes down, I kind of feel like, wow, they probably did something right, because in corny open queue, it was very easy for me to just cheese ball meta picks. Whereas now I think I have to play actual Overwatch, which is learn multiple heroes. It's very punishing. Team comp's got to be right. And so I enjoy the difficulty of that personally. And it's part of the reason why I'm on the little journey I am trying to improve at tank. So both things can be like kind of true at the same time, right? There's not like I'm right, he's wrong. This, that's not the case, right? So I'll let you go, SVB.
Yeah, no, I was going to emphasize that, ultimately this is an exchange of opinions, and it is about subjective experience. Of course, there's no, nobody's going to be like, this is objectively DPS is better, worse, whatever. We're all talking our opinions, and of course, Flats has played so many games, and he's only going to speak on his experience, and you've played so many games, and you've also been weighed down by the duo that is me, bringing you down into a worse state of game and an increased loss rate. So that's going to affect your experience. And I do think that, every time a game switches like this, it becomes difficult, it becomes different, and it becomes hard. Like I supporting in our duo, I've been finding it really hard, really tricky, trying to adapt, because we started off running a lot of Zen, and that's when the season started, and I was farming, you were you know this as well. It's oh, this is fucking easy. I put a Discorder thing, we just We toasted together. Then they nerfed Zen, and now I'm getting punished a lot more. I kind of need to learn from Sam about like my positioning on Zen and stuff. And I think that's also the fun of it. I think that's the fun of it is the like, this is new. We have to figure some things out again. It's not just like do this in these places. And to add, your experience is much more close to what the average player would be encountering in a normal rank, right? Like 90% of players are not in Flats' tough lobbies. Like I think that's always been the way with Tank in Overwatch 2 is that I've always described it as you're allowed to dominate as long as they let you dominate. Like it's always the case. Like if I want to play Doomfist, we were talking to Sam and I was like, Sam, I think Doomfist is underrated. Probably isn't for him because I know the minute he goes Doomfist, 30 seconds in, they know exactly what to pick. And I even made a tweet about this a while back, which I realized in my 1 week as Diva when I was getting coached by Hawk and stuff. The biggest difference I actually find in like the GM lobbies when I get to GM versus when I'm anything but, the GMs know very quickly what counters the thing. And they are willing to play that game all the time. They're willing to be like, oh, you went that? Okay, you pick Diva? I'll go Brig Bap. Try having fun now. And I'm just sat there miserable and Hawk is like, I don't think there's anything you can do here. Like, I think it's a GG. Like, it's over. Versus in Diamond, in Plat, it can happen, but it doesn't always happen. Some games, they insta counter swap you, and you're like, well, fuck. I gotta either I'm gonna be miserable on my OTP, or I have to counter swap as well. And some games, they just don't. Some games, they're obstinate, and they're like, I want to OTP, Kiriko, and so I'm not gonna pick the thing that's gonna defeat you. I'm just gonna pick whatever I want. And that's been my experience on Tank, where it's like some games I'm like, I'm dumpstering this lobby. Like, I'm shitting on everyone in this lobby. And in other games, I'm like, wow, well, again, we've got a trash support line. My DPS is Glue Slipper on Junkrat OTP. He's just dive bombing this high ground over and over. And his biggest contribution is that when he dies, he leaves some mines that might actually do some damage to the people that he jumped over the top of. And like that's my hope. So I think that's probably like a big reason why there's such this discrepancy in experience, and I think that's a big divide in the ranks now. I think that is one of the big, like, I don't think the mechanical divide is as big as it once was in Overwatch. Like, it used to be a time when it was like GM and like Plat, it was like GMs were just like so much better mechanically, which I'm sure they still are, but I think this is what I've noticed the most whenever I cross over from one threshold to the other is like, Jesus Christ, these guys do not let me pick this hero anymore. Like, they will not let me go 2 fights playing this hero. So that's my take.
I won a game the other day on Junkertown. I was on attack because their tank sat in spawn counter swapping me. You know the bridge on third? Like on third when you're leaving spawn? I got about to the choke every time they counter swapped me. I walked back and just swapped immediately. And third? They left on third.
Junkertown. Bruh.
My team pushed the cart the entire way until it was 2 meters with both tanks in spawn swapping. I have a clip. I can find it for you if you want to see it. And their tank types to me all caps, goes, what the fuck are you doing? And I said, this season makes me want to eat glass. I will be petty I have all the pettiness in the world. You can't break me.
That's not petty, though. That's efficient.
And you know what? They walked out because they had a touch soon. They walked out on like, it was like Zarya. I walked out on Winston. We won instantly. Won the game instantly because our team pushed the whole way because I couldn't fight them. There was no one to contest cart. That's it. I won the game.
I've had a very similar experience. It's funny. People rage chatting me for counterpicking as they're counterpicking. So yeah. I think they should take a look at that whole free swap situation.
I got this
do you queue solo or do you play with friends as well?
I've been playing. I try to always duo at least because solo queue is awful. Because nobody ever talks. So me and Karki play a lot. But I've done a good amount of soloing this season as well. Not a ton of it, but I'd say probably like 60 or 70 games this season solo. I dropped a clip for you guys.
If your experience might change DPS is such a fundamental role that not bringing one with you, I wonder if that would change your perspective at all. I mean, maybe not, but certainly I think at least, when we've stacked SVB and we feel our stacks DPS aren't doing what we want, at least we can say, fix this and you better, or we're just going to not play with you. Right. I think this is a team game again in a big way. So, and I certainly know, and I agree with you, if I have gotten mollywopped not playing with friends and needing my DPS to do a certain thing and trying to figure out how to support a cast who wants to walk towards the tank on cart all game. Like, so I don't have a solution to some of these things. I'm still learning myself. I think just where my perspective comes from is because I'm not as good as you. I can see the gap, and this is always the beautiful thing about Overwatch. It's most fun the more bad you are, because there's more opportunities to be like, well, I didn't read the kill feed there. I could have done this. I should have been on the right hero. Like, there's more mistakes that I can take on myself. So it's almost like you know when someone tells you they haven't seen Game of Thrones yet, and you could be like, oh my goodness, you have no idea what you're gonna, that season 2 this reveal's gonna happen. It's like there's still so much in front of me to improve and to enjoy before I get to that like completely angry streamer stage, being just a young 1 week Andy in optimistic. I can improve. I could do this, guys. In about a month, I'm going to be angrier than you, I'm sure. So,
Yeah,
It's a
Game of
cycle,
Thrones.
baby.
Game of Thrones is the perfect metaphor for that, because you'd start off really happy, and then by the end, you're like, "Why the fuck did I ever bother starting this trash can? Why the fuck? It wasn't worth it in the end. It wasn't fucking
I'm
worth it."
just saying, doesn't happen in Naruto. Greatest story ever told. Actually, Avatar. Have you guys seen the Avatar last year? Please tell me it's good. I'm not watching.
I'm not watching it, dude. I can't. I'm sure it's gonna be trash. I
I
can't.
saw
I can't do
tweet
it.
about it, and I was like, I gotta be careful here, because I'm not even gonna start.
No, dude. I can't. I can't. There's no way they did it well. There's no way they did it well. So, okay. Any other thoughts on the DPS passive before we move to concluding thoughts? Sam, I haven't heard from you in a while. Do you want to talk about DPS stuff? No? You good?
Fucking kill feeds, baby. We're good to go.
All right, let's go then. Let's head to concluding thoughts. It's been a great and marathon episode. We're hitting the 3-hour mark. It's been a good one. So many great discussions, I feel like, and so many good back and forth, so many good exchanges of ideas. And that's why you guys are the GOATs. That's why dubbed the Avengers of the podcast. That when we come together, there's always some great shit here. So, what do we want to see? As I always ask you, what do we want to see for the rest of the season? What do we want to see in a mid-season patch, potentially? I know Sam wants to see the Cowboy Bebop. I'm sure that's coming, Sam. Don't worry about it. It's coming. Unless they baited us massively and they were like, psych, bitch. There's no Cowboy Bebop. But yeah, so what do you want to see in the coming season, mid-season patch? And yeah, like, how would your vision of Overwatch improve in the coming month or two? Sam, you go first.
I'd like to see some, like, just keep improving the rank system. It's good. I'd like to see them do something fresh. I'd love to see, obviously, like a 6v6 quick play hack or something like that. Just fun. Spice it up. Give me new ways to express myself. I know there's a new DPS hero coming in that it's been a while. Like, the last hero that came out for my role was Echo, and I've done just about everything I can on that character. So I'm bored now. I don't know. I got top 50 on Sombra. I play Echo every season. I've been teaching Nate Echo. Actually, I had him watch my Echo guide last night. He was like, "Wait a minute, this is way more fun." I was like, "Yeah, she's the most fun flex DPS to play right now, because she is the ultimate anti-cheese. No matter what hero you pick, if you're on Sig, if you're on Diva, if you're on Zarya, if you're on whatever it may be, Junkrat, Torbjorn, does not matter. I can pick Echo, and if I play well, I can copy you. I can do whatever I want. I have the best skill expression and the most options on Echo. So I'm glad to see her like still be like pickable. And so I'd like to see copy be a little bit more functional and fair, because like it's hard to make a play with it, but like it's still fun. Rank system is good. Cowboy Bebop, and then I just keep swinging the bat. You know, it's nice to be able to make a video and come out and say that I was wrong about something, and that like I didn't think this patch would kill the game. I think I was right about how like the disparity between heroes that are good and bad. I'd like to see. Please make Ana pickable. Like, oh man, like I will play more support when I can play Ana.
Careful with that one, Sam.
Why?
I'm saying make Ana more pickable sounds like you get a buff Ana. No. That's not that though.
Oh god,
It's the passive.
Wait, do you guys think? Well, hold on. I think do you guys think the 10% global ult reduction was necessary?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Nerf more is more. And 5 other things.
And there's already too many ults. Too many buttons.
I want to play
on
Ana.
I mean, you could just reduce if you feel like it's an Ana problem, you could just reduce her ult. Like, it doesn't have, the global doesn't have to stay. You could reduce how like her needed
Listen,
ult.
Flats, if you want to play Winston, it's gonna have to happen, buddy. So
No,
you know,
I just think there's too many ults, and I already just think there's too many buttons. Like people just how many times you walk into a fight and it's already GG because you know they have 3 ults. You know what I mean? Like it's like, well, we're fucked.
I need Danny to back me up here. I don't know where she's at, but she would agree. So that's what matters. All right, our resident grandma. But no, like yeah. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm content. I got a lot on my plate as is, so I'm kind of just along for the ride.
That's totally fair. Yeah, I mean, there's ways I'm sure that they could be reasonable on adjustments or maybe Moira nerfs. Freedo, how do you feel? What do you want to see coming for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I agree with Flats' take that like this whole mid-season hotfix thing, it's not really cutting it for me. But I also get fearful that they'll just overbuff as well. So I'm on the fence about it. Like I feel like the devs are just sort of like, we know it's broken. Just like play the game for a while, and then we'll try to fix it subtly. That's the attitude. We get the one little quick fix, and then a big mid-season patch is coming, right? Question mark. Like I just hope some of the clearly overtuned matchups get addressed. I don't know how they fix my problem with Torb, for example, where I just think that's like the one hero I feel like just can't even meaningfully interact with when they swap to him because he has a cooldown. There's some general principles about the game I really like where cooldowns and positioning and team shooting, that's all good, but just like we pretty quickly found the obnoxious easy characters to play, and we need another balance pass to get the game in a more playable state. That's what I'm looking forward to most, is just balance overall. Like remember like season 10, we get the anyone can stack with anyone thing. They've already loosened that up a bit. So for me, part of the reason why I wanted to come back and start streaming and playing more is because I can play with friends again. Because ultimately, I don't care what rank I get to. Like, I want to improve generally, but I don't have aspirations to be next to Sam on the combined 1 leaderboard. I don't think that's achievable for me. Instead, I like to experience the strategy of the game and do my part. Like it feels very Overwatch 1 to me, where there's lower mechanically skilled characters. And I kind of would put Diva as one of them now, for example. Like you can kind of like hold corners and eat damage, whereas before it's like I felt if I couldn't hit every shot as Junker Queen or Hog or whatever, I was having like no impact. Whereas I think defending your team is effective again, and the role is certainly punishing for sure. Don't disagree with Flat's frustration on that regard. I think it's just on different ends of the skill curve on the ceiling we're trying to hit here. So I just want to get better myself. I'm dedicated to the game, making content again. I hope I can make better content and maybe the help as well, like the mass player base. Because while Flats is 100% right about his experience, I feel sometimes then the whole player base will make it seem like they did all they could. And I'm telling you, if I think I make mistakes that lose the game constantly, you certainly have, and you're not playing that well, in my opinion. Like Flats doesn't do unranked GMs. I don't know why. I mean, you maybe have said it, but maybe you just need to tip your toe in some of the more ruthless content game and stop hitting your head against the wall trying to do without a DPS player. I love it personally, and I think you would farm it as well. You could play Ryan, and like I want to see you play Ryan. I want to see if your experience, like if your opinion on Ryan changes when you just like unranked the GM in an hour on Ryan, because I played against Ryan and it bugs.
I don't need to dump on low ranked players to prove anything though. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't. I've always been a big believer that unranked GM is just a stupid piece of content that people love because they want to see high-ranked players pop the fuck off, and it's the same reason why pubs was a big thing in Apex for a very, very long time before they really changed their skill-based matchmaking to make it just like ranked, because you just have your insane ASUs just going through lobbies killing everybody, and it's the same thing in Overwatch, and it's held behind the mirage of educational, which I respect the grind, make your money, make your bread, but I think it's trash. That's why I don't do it.
I won't convince you of this. What I would watch it for is how to be observe and learn. Like I watched Boger do it on Ramatra. The things I learned from that was game changing for me. Like, because the problem is if we just watch you in your context, I don't know how you deal with some of the really odd bad play that my enemy's doing that I don't know how to respond to appropriately in the moment. And then I make a worse mistake and lose to it and look like an idiot. It's more about things like that for me anyway. So I do consider it educational when I watch it. And I think a lot of people would appreciate it, but I don't think I'm going to convince you in this call. So Anyway.
No, I appreciate Flats' POV. I mean, this is a divergent topic, but while I also see the value in unranked GMs, I think they're fundamentally unethical. That's why I did 2 in early Overwatch when I was starting off as a content creator, and then I was like, I feel kind of gross doing these, and I stopped doing them.
I mean, if you want history, it used to be bronze the GM, and the only reason people stopped doing it is because Blizzard started to tell people if you keep, we're going to ban you. So the whole point behind it originally was bronze the GM to really sell the entire thing. The only reason unranked the GM even exists is because it was a loophole that people could use because you can't get people in trouble for having an account that was just placed unranked. And that's why there's also people that sometimes buy accounts that are played in quick play by worse players, so when you do your placements, you might actually end up getting silver or gold. But typically, if a high ranked player plays all their quick play games and then goes in, you're going to get at least high plat diamond, if not even I don't know about the new system, old system, you could even get I think up to 3,500 equivalent. But yeah, so the whole thing behind it was basically just to farm people's content, and it's unethical in my opinion. But
they did fix the scaling dramatically in order to
anyways, we'll move on from the we'll move on from the unranked GM thing. Anyways, I think that was a tangent. It is easily could have been another entire podcast, and especially considering the light of recent drama that's been taking place on Overwatch social media. But we shall stick to the concluding thoughts. So Flats, give me your concluding thoughts. What do you want to see for the rest of this season?
I think tank needs some help. I think honestly the key might be the DPS passive, but again, I'm a little more to the conservative end before nerf it. It might need just a small tweak. But it's just the tank experience that needs to be improved, and we're probably close to one of the best states of Overwatch we've seen in Overwatch, at least in Overwatch 2. It's very fun. New rank system is great. There are definitely some downsides to it. For example, I think I'm positive 20, 30 games or something on the season. I'm down from where I started, which is very wild. That to have such a pretty good positive win rate, but still down in rank. I know there's a lot of confusion around how much you rank up and rank down, and there's been server issues that also tilt people and whatnot. But overall, though, this season has been a lot more fun, and it's good having something to play for again, which is nice. And I think that's probably the key to getting a lot of people to actually play a lot of Overwatch again. Because even though Overwatch has been doing okay and has been kind of on life support, I think we would all be fooling ourselves if we think that Overwatch was doing good compared to the rest of the games market, at least in the last 8 months. Obviously, after BlizzCon, things have been a little more exciting because we had things that were coming, but now here we are. We're here. This is the we're so back moment. From here on, what do we look forward to? What is the next goal? Where do we go up from here? Because this was right where we stand right this moment is our up moment, right? So would you say where we are today is so happy, yeah, everything's great, everyone loves the game again? I say there's still a lot of things that can be improved upon, and there's a lot of things to build upon from that. Obviously, we haven't heard anything yet. Yeah, obviously, you're not gonna hear anything yet. It's just fucking happened. So let's be a little bit real. But there's a long way to go. I kind of like the way they're going, the direction they're going. I hope they keep leaning into it. But at least in this where it stands right now, Overwatch has been enjoyable to play. It's just the tank role that needs some help somewhere. I think if it gets some help, we're in a good spot.
Yeah, and I think I agree totally that we're in a good moves have been made by the devs, right? Good moves have been made, but more good moves continue to need to be made. And I think the whole idea of a yearly shakeup is great. I really, really think they should stick with that and really give the players, again, the way Sam alluded to with Fortnite, give the players something really fresh and exciting and something to really dig their teeth into. This one was big, but maybe not even as big as we thought it would be. When they announced it, everyone was like, shit, this is gonna completely change everything. And it hasn't quite. It's changed a lot, but I still don't think it's we'll probably be figuring it out by by the end of the season, we'll have kind of figured out how this plays out. And unless the next hero completely shakes it up again, which is unlikely, we'll be back to potential quote-unquote staleness soon enough. So the next one could be even bigger, could be even more drastic. And that's where we go back to the ideas that we tossed about. The devs will have the unenviable job of trying to figure out what the actual next frontier to experiment will be. Is it open queue? Is it 6v6? Is it 7v7? Or is it Flast's 4v4 or Watch 3?
No.
That he suggested a while back. half in jest, I'm sure. So there's a lot to do. There's one simple request that I have to developers, because there's like minor tweaks, like the stacking thing that Sam mentioned. I think there's like a weird matchmaking with the stacking. I love the stacking, but it's a weird matchmaking. The only one thing I beg the developers: do not buff Roadhog, please. I'm begging you. Whatever the fuck you do not buff Roadhog. Whenever that guy is good, this game is dog shit. I do not want to play games where everyone's locking Roadhog. That might be the most easy way to get Ana to be viable, but do not buff Roadhog. I'm begging you. I'm begging you. You're probably looking at this guy. You're like, his pick rate's kind of low right now. His win rate's maybe low. No, don't do it. It's the fucking Interstellar moment where I'm watching from behind the glass and I'm like, don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. So please, I'm begging you, don't fall for the bait. Do not buff Roadhog. Do not.
I need that edit. I need that edit. I know somebody out there can make that edit. Grab SVB like that. Listen, he got me with my enlightenment moment. This is your Matthew McConaughey moment. I need SVB on the walls of Interstellar.
Somebody with the editing wizard skills, please. And this is me looking at a Roadhog getting buffed. Like, please no. And if that happens, I'll be happy. We'll adapt to whatever else it is, as long as that hero's in the dumpster, Overwatch is thriving. So, to that end, thank you so much to Samito, Freedo, and Flats, the homies, the Avengers, for coming through. It was 4 months since the four of us actually got together.
4
guys.
months?
4 months. I had to look.
Wow.
The last time all four of us were in the same call. So I think it's just because, it's easy for one of us to be off somewhere doing something else. Yeah. But I'm glad to have you guys together.
This was Avengers Civil War episode. A great video. I'll be Cap. Freedo can be Tony Stark.
That's fair. That's fair.
I like it. That was a great movie. I love that movie.
Yeah, that was a good metaphor too. Because at the end of the day,
Flats' vision.
Well, Flats is gonna get offed. What's going on? Spoiler alert. Flats.
Nice spoiler, dude.
Hulk after today, after being angry about the state of tank.
Yeah, that's true.
Right?
There's many candidates. There's many
I
candidates.
appreciate it, y'all. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
great
so much for your time,
That was
guys.
one of our best ones for sure. That was
a great one. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I really enjoyed the exchange of ideas. I love that you guys can do that and keep it respectful and come back and keep it 100. So I appreciate you guys.
You can do that on the internet nowadays.
It's crazy.
You can disagree.
Not on Twitter. Not on Twitter.com. Wow. Definitely not.
Definitely not. You mean X? Jesus.
No, I don't. I really don't.
That's where we end it right
now.
All right. There's nothing better than that.
Peace out, guys. Peace out.